I would like to call the business meeting of the Portland Board of Public Education to order. It is Tuesday, May 20th, 2025. We're meeting in a hybrid format with some of us here at Casco Bay and some online, though I think the ones online will be here in person very soon. I did want to note that Dr. Scallon is out this week, and Dr. Warren will be proceeding with the meeting with me. So let's go ahead and call the roll, Dr. Warren.
Member Ali.
Here.
Yeah, he should be online.
Okay.
Member Yusra Ali.
Here.
Vice Chair Bondo.
Present.
Member Bryden.
Here.
Member Lena.
Present.
Member Noor.
Here.
Dr. Opperman.
Present.
Student Representative Fitzgerald.
Here.
Student Representative Kantiba. Student Representative Lee.
Here.
Student Representative O'Brien.
Here.
Student Representative Ziegler. Chair Lentz.
Present. Thank you. And now the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, visible, liberty and justice for all.
Portland Public Schools recognizes the original inhabitants of the land on which our city and schools stand. The Wolastoqey, or Maliseet, Micmac, Penobscot, and Passamaquoddy tribes, known collectively as the Wabanaki Confederacy, or people of the Dawnland. We are honored to have Wabanaki children among our students today, and as the district, we are committed to making the past, present, and future of Wabanaki peoples visible in our schools and classrooms. And a reminder of our mission. The Portland Public Schools is responsible for ensuring a challenging, relevant, and joyful education that empowers every learner to make a difference in the world. We build relationships among families, educators, and the community to promote the healthy development and academic achievement of every learner. And our definition of equity. Equity is all people being held to high expectations and having access to opportunities that are reflective of their individual needs, identities, and experiences. Equity is achieved in Portland Public Schools when there are no identifiable differences in outcomes and experiences for any population subgroup. We're going to start with public comment tonight. And I think we have a few people here to give public comment. Let me also look online. Beautiful. So I'm going to go ahead and go over the guidelines for public comment tonight. So members of the public may speak on any subject directly related to the operations of the schools, except for personnel matters or complaints concerning specific employees or students, which shall be addressed through established policies and procedures. If an item is on the agenda, please use the public comment time associated with that item. And just a note, I think there are people here to speak on the cell phone policy. We'll be doing public comment at the top of the meeting. For that, you don't have to wait for the item to come up on the agenda. So you can use this public comment section for those comments. Comments are limited to a maximum of 3 minutes or 6 minutes for individuals using an interpreter to make their comment. Individuals may not relinquish a portion of their allotted time to another speaker. The board may not respond to comments, and please refrain from responding in the audience. Speakers must refrain from engaging in disruptive conduct, including, but not limited to, using vulgar and/or obscene language, threatening others using words or by other actions, using pejorative or discriminatory language with reference to a person or a group on the basis of their religion, ethnicity, nationality, race, color, descent, gender, or other identity factor, making defamatory comments, exceeding the allotted time limits, talking over or interrupting others, offering repetitive comments, and offering comment on matters unrelated to the school district's programs, policies, or operations. I will stop any public comment that is contrary to these rules. To give public comment, you can come forward to the podium or raise your hand in Zoom. Please begin by introducing yourself with your name and address, and we'll alternate batches between Zoom and in person. I will keep the time and raise a yellow folder indicating that you have 30 seconds remaining. I will raise a red folder signifying the end of your time. If you get the end of your allotted time and you would like to request more time, you may do so. So with that, we're going to open up public comment. So if you are here to give public comment, you can come up to the podium. Or you can raise your Zoom hand. Okay.
Good evening. My name is Sarah Schmidt. I'm a teacher at Deering High School, and I live at 67 Ray Street in Portland. And thank you for letting us address this group this evening. I'm a 25-year veteran teacher of Portland's high schools. I taught at Portland High and at Deering. And I find our students' plummeting mental health and vanishing academic skills kind of heartbreaking. Teenagers report that they are online almost constantly during the day. And now we see that they are struggling to read, to write, to complete simple math equations without a calculator, interact civilly, and, as we know, to pay attention. While phones certainly aren't the only cause of the rise in depression and hopelessness among our youth, phones are implicated in countless studies by the NIH, the CDC, and other respected research institutions. Teenage girls are especially vulnerable to social media bullying, body shaming, sexting, harassment, and low self-esteem, exacerbated by content on online platforms like TikTok and Instagram. A full 60% of high school girls report that social media makes them feel terrible. Even the Surgeon General has warned of the health risks associated with social media. Some people in other forums related to this issue have argued that limiting access to phones for only 6 hours of the day at school will have little positive impact because they will still be accessing their phones when they're not in school. However, the evidence shows improved social development skills and reduced depression as a result of cell phone bans. So it's a strong argument for not allowing them into the schools. Others in stakeholder meetings have suggested that we slow down this process. They are worried that the district will do a sloppy job of implementing the policy by next fall, that not all concerns expressed by parents and administrators will be addressed. Having been in on these discussions for almost a year, I'm convinced that the board will only move forward if they have in place a well-thought-out and detailed plan that mitigates parents' safety concerns, allows exceptions as needed, and does not impose an undue burden on teachers or administrators. Seems to me that they are well on the way to crafting that plan. Surely there will be bumps in the road, but really there is no reason to wait. I really urge this board to endorse the policy of no cell phones, first bell to last, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you. We'll do another in-person one, and then we'll move to Zoom with Lisa Shepard.
Thank you. My name is Christine Boudreau. I live in Portland, and I work as a math teacher at Deering High School. I attended one of the stakeholder meetings, and I've been in conversations with colleagues throughout, and I just want to respond with just a snapshot of my experience with phone policy, because currently we are expected to put them in phone hotel, and I really appreciate the tone of the stakeholder meetings and that people were curious about what happens at the high school. There's a lot of agreement that at younger grades, phones are not needed. In high school, we're practicing to be adults. And even among colleagues at the high school, there's sometimes some language that, teachers are really inconsistent with reinforcing the policy as it stands. So I just want to respond to that. As a high school teacher, I want to even just have the ears of my colleagues here that we sometimes have different class sizes made up of different ranges of students at different ages, at different readiness to learn, and at different levels of motivation toward the content. I teach core content. All students need it, my class, to graduate. So I have every type of learner in my room. And I just want to create a little picture of what one class of my day might look like. And people listening, if you keep in your mind a sense of what you think my reinforcements should be for this experience. So my class threshold is 25, and I've had classes around that number with the variety of learners that I've just described. As students walk in the door, they know that their phones should go in the hotel, and this is what it looks like. About 5 or 6 students will go ahead and put it in the hotel as they come in. I have materials lined up, so it could be part of their routine as they come in, and some students internalize this. If I say nothing, 5 or 6 phones might go in the hotel. 8 to 10 will comply after a whole class prompt. 2 to 4 students will hold out until I specifically prompt them, which requires me to individually tally the phones. 1 to 3 will present a persistent challenge to this and perhaps argue with me. Any of the above could, out of any of the above, I will have about 4 students in an average class go back to their phone to check it in the hotel. They might leave it. 1 to 2 will retrieve it when I'm not looking, and I will find it and have to re-retrieve it from them later. So did you tally all the things that happened in one of my classes? So things I have tried. If they have more than 3 individual reminders from me before they comply, I might refer them to a CCC lunch. If I have to re-retrieve the phone from them, or if they engage in argument.
That's 3 minutes, but would you like some more time?
I would.
Yes, no, that's okay. How about 30 more seconds?
Okay, yes, I
Go
can
ahead.
finish. I might involve a parent notification. So almost done. So the implications for my additional time outside of class is the communication to all of the CCs for about 2 to 6 students for just the regular non-compliance. I might communicate with additional resources in the school, because students who argue beyond that or cause more disruption than that probably are on a plan and have another specialist in the building involved, and I'd like them to be updated with the data. And a parent contact if I get there and think that's an effective thing to do. This is about an hour of my time and a lot more of other people's time. Again, that's for one class full of the expected amount of students at the expected range of readiness. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Lisa Shepard, go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Lisa Shepard. I live at 101 Craigie Street in Portland. I'm a parent of a 3rd grade student at Rowe Elementary School. I've been participating in a lot of discussions around how this updated policy will work. I'm also in touch with Devin Gallus, the assistant principal at Morse High School, who implemented a bell-to-bell policy in Bath's RSU 1 district. Of course, there was pushback there in anticipation of the change, like there is here, but Devin is convinced that this policy change has improved the overall health of the district entirely. While I've stated the many benefits of removing phones from schools on these calls, I've now collated a list of opposition points that I can easily address. I'll begin with the parents' opposition points. Parents believe that students walking to school or leaving campus at lunch need phones, but with the Yonder Pouch option, phones stay on students until school starts and are returned immediately after. Parents also have concerns for safety and communication during emergencies, but emergency plans already exist, and Portland's law enforcement has confirmed that phones can hinder safety protocols in schools. Next, we have student opposition points. Students fear that they can't get updates about sports or extracurriculars after school, but they can use school Chromebooks, email, announcements, and TV monitors for daily updates. Just like everything else, there is a way around this. Students also fear that this policy change feels rushed, like Sarah said, that they're being used as test subjects. But every meaningful change feels disruptive at first. This change has already happened in Maine and countrywide, and schools are unanimous, reporting positive results. And finally, We have the school admin and staff opposition points. They believe that managing this will burden front office staff, but yonder pouch magnets can be distributed school-wide, and I assure you, the initial effort leads to long-term relief for staff and teachers. Another concern is that the cost of yonder pouches equals a teacher's salary, that we already lack funding for basic needs. But this is a long-term investment, a one-time investment in student success, and could be grant funded. Lastly, teachers worry that students need phones for class, for photos, translation, and communication. But remember, exceptions can be made. Students can access translation apps from Chromebooks, which teachers are already building curriculums around, and yonder pouches can also be unlocked in designated classrooms. I urge the board to vote to update the cell phone policy to be bell to bell, no phones in our schools. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll do 2 in person. So go ahead and come on up.
Howdy. My name is Cece Davies Robinson. I'm a teacher right here at Casco Bay High School. I teach English. You guys just listened to a daring colleague of mine describe a spectacular waste of her time. So I just want to say this one's big. Thank you for making space to be here. And it feels almost miraculous to me that we're here talking about a policy that might actually happen because there's public support. Blaming students for their overuse, misuse, and dependence on cell phones is bypassing our responsibility that we're here for tonight. This may be the easiest, challenging as it is, easiest, cheapest, and most effective way to raise test scores, improve student mental health, strengthen community, improve physical fitness. Like, can you even imagine another solution that would just involve getting rid of stuff? I know yonder pouches cost money and stuff. This policy is a great idea. Just because it's hard to implement doesn't mean it's bad policy. Just because exceptions need to be made doesn't mean it's bad policy. I sent an email to colleagues earlier today saying I'd speak. Do you have anything you want me to add? A lot of all caps thank you emails came in. Our special educator he forwarded me an article. I'm going to read you the title. It says it all right here. Students in the lowest quintile of prior achievement gain 14.23% of a standard deviation on test scores in schools implementing phone bans. It's an educational miracle. That is a significant percentage. Our school psychologist named that she sits with kids to do the type of assessments we require for special education entrance, and kids are on their phones and she's navigating the constant back and forth of what to do. She doesn't really have the recourse of removing them, and they're wearing their earbuds during timed things. I've lived it all. I'd like to read from Ann Laughlin, our science teacher, who really nailed the nuance. So right now, phones are banned from schools. So what does that mean? Teachers with awesome classroom management totally don't have phones in their classroom. She's got awesome classroom management. The kids in her room just need to use the bathroom all the time. You can see where I'm going with this? They come back with their phone in hand. They arrive late. Coincidentally, a whole bunch of their friends appeared in the hallway and the bathroom at the same time. All of their pockets went vibrating at the same time. They all got kind of anxious and like they needed to really, really use the bathroom. I'll end, because 3 months is short, with her final note, which is chilling. These are the notes she ended her email with. It used to be that we did not know how this technology could hypothetically affect adolescent brains. Now we have ample evidence of a range of negative impacts. I believe that failure to support boundaries on this technology is a form of educational malpractice. I agree. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on up.
Thank you all for being here and for letting me speak. My name is Rebecca Lynch-Nichols, and I teach at Casco Bay High School. I'm going to read a portion of the letter I wrote to you all earlier. So I've been a teacher for 30 years. I'm also a parent of 2 students here at Casco Bay. One is about to graduate, and one is a sophomore. My children both go here. I love teaching here. I love my community. I love my students, and I love my fellow staff. However, I've watched over time our educational environment be slowly hijacked by distraction towards technology. I am hopeful about the current movement and have seen schools across New England. The school where I went in Brookline, they have now banned phones. All over New England have removed phones from schools, transforming schools into thriving, more engaging, and social places. I am 100% behind the research the committee has shared with you and full-heartedly support the banning of cell phones. I am confident that we can overcome the logistics, and this will take some time, but this should not be why we do not do it. We owe it to our students, the children, to provide an environment where they are free from cell phone distraction. We know that cell phones are addictive, and many adults are also addicted. And how can we possibly expect a young person just to not touch it and not look at it? It's just not scientifically possible for their brain to say no to something that we know is addictive. I hope we do this year so that my son, who is currently a sophomore, can enjoy 2 more years of high school and get the most out of it. This would be the biggest educational boost the school board could give my family. I look forward to next September when my 16-year-old will walk down the hall device-free, present in class and in school. No video games, Snapchat, TikTok, Instagram, distract, stress, interference, whatever, all of the noise that is happening. And studies show that even with the phone in the bag and available to touch, it hinders your ability to focus. So it is not just having it in your hand, it is having it nearby and able to pick up at any moment. Battling cell phone use is taxing on educators, and by making an already difficult job much harder. But I do not want teacher burden to distract from the real focus here. We owe it to our young people to help them focus so that they can access their learning and learn to think critically. I encourage you to listen to the podcast as I sent you all by Ezra Klein, Rethinking the Purpose of Education, and to take a look at the book, The Disengaged Teen, Helping Kids Learn Better, Feel Better, and Live Better by Rebecca Winthrop. Thank you again for listening to me, and thank you all for your service on the school board.
Thank you. We're going to go to online. Shyman Cohen. Are you there? Oh, let's try again. Oh. Shyman, are you there?
Yes. Hello?
Go ahead. Yeah, we can hear you.
Sorry, it wasn't letting me speak. Thanks. My name is Shimon Cohen. I am a parent of 2 students in Portland Public Schools. One who's about to graduate from Deering and one who will be attending Portland next year. I'm also a licensed clinical social worker. Mental health is very important to me. I also do some teaching, and I am sympathetic and empathetic to what teachers are experiencing trying to implement the current policy, which, if followed, seems like it would actually address a lot of these concerns about cell phone use, but clearly it seems like a battle going on around that. But as a parent, I do have concerns, and I did hear someone speak earlier talking about a Yonder pouch, which I've since now looked up online what it is. And I guess my biggest question is how that type of policy would be implemented in terms of communication and safety, because there have been times, my wife and I both work. When it's time to pick up from school, sometimes activities get canceled, things get changed. One of our daughters works on the school play and is sometimes at school until 7 o'clock at night. And so being able to know in advance as soon as she knows something is going on, which her school email account, I'm pretty sure it blocks being able to email like our personal email accounts. So I'm not quite sure the details of how these things would be addressed. I totally understand what everyone is saying. I'm hearing all these benefits. I am skeptical that this is such an educational miracle as being portrayed. There's a whole host of other issues, such as playing video games on Chromebooks during school and things like that. But I think as a parent, I would be in support of this if these issues around communication and safety would be addressed. And I really would just encourage the board to be cautious in making sure those details are implemented in a policy like this. And, you know, because there are students who do follow the current policy, do put their phones away for the day, and them and their families are going to be penalized with this policy if it's not done in a way that honors that. The last thing I'll say about that is, because I did read something about dropping off the phones and then having to pick them up at the end of the day. And I guess those pouches would solve this problem, but that could be a very long line and make pickup time that much harder. And like for me, for example, I leave work, pick up our daughter, and then I go back to work. So, you know, the timing of this stuff for working parents is really important. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we'll do a couple in person, so you can come on up.
Am I close enough to the microphone? Is this a good volume?
Yes.
I think I'm not here to talk to you about if I think I should have my phone in school. I'm Ronan Woodford, by the way. I attend Castile Bay. I'm a freshman. I should state that, sorry. But I'm not here to talk to you about that. I think that my first issue is, how am I going to leave school if if I have to say grab my phone? Are you going to keep buses back for me? Especially those metro buses, which are, as you probably know, I would hope you know, is the way most of our students get home who aren't walking or being picked up. I also think that the sentiment I've heard echoed by teachers when it comes to the yonder pouch idea is the money. Which I had somebody previously addressed that concern, but I think the idea that it's a one-time investment is insane. If this school that we are in, Castile Bay, does constant reminders of kids to get their computer chargers, since we've lost so many of them. I think that the idea that students can lose computer chargers, but not a pouch that they have they don't like it probably. And even if it's just they have that such a small time where they have it unlocked, I feel like they still will be lost, so you'll have to replace them. And I just can't state enough about how kids will be late to class if you try to do a drop it off at the door policy too. The amount of students who come into school at 8:20 on the dot is amazing. It is an amazing amount of students, and some of those are already late. A lot of my classes that start early in the day, my first blocks of the day, class starts might as well be 8:30. So if you don't postpone that even further, will it end up being, if you have a first block, you're going to have that class be either harder or you're going to learn physically less from how much time you would be missing due to a line at the door dropping their phone off. And I'm fine.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lauren Hamlin, and I live at 142 Caleb Street in Portland. And I am the parent of a second grader at Rowe Elementary who might be speaking after me. So I attended one of the stakeholder meetings at Portland High School, and I'm here tonight to give my full support to the proposed changes to the district's cell phone policy, ensuring that all of our schools are cell phone free. Since this policy update was proposed, I'm sure you've heard many objections that all fall under one conceptual umbrella, which is that the idea that we've let the genie out of the bottle and there's no going back. You'll hear a lot of these objections that are, simple, isolated aspects of this argument, and the truth is that it's not true. Technology and the ubiquity of the digital devices in our lives is not some force of nature that we can't control. We let it into our lives. Every day we have a choice. It might not be an easy one or a convenient one, but it is a choice. And on June 10th, the school board has a choice to make on behalf of the community. The choice to give every child in this district a gift, whether they see it that way or not, the gift of 6.5 hours to engage, collaborate, and just be, to live and learn in the absence of distractions designed specifically to capture as much attention for profit as humanly possible. In a sane and wise world, 6.5 hours is not a lot of time away from your device. Families will still be able to contact their children. Students will still learn how to navigate the digital world before school, after school, and on the weekends. The pushback against this policy shows just how deeply entrenched this technology has become, to the point where people talk about their phones as if they're water or air, and teenagers express anxiety just at the thought of this policy. If that isn't enough evidence that I don't know what is. Until recently, and for thousands and thousands of years, we've lived as humans who work and think and interact with each other, not with cell phones. I urge the board and the community to remember this. We must play the long game. The short game may be full of hassles in September, but they pale in comparison to sending kids out into the world anxious, depressed, and disconnected. Thank you so much for your consideration.
Thank you. Now we're going to do one more in person, and then we will go online to Erica.
Hi, my name is Willa Abbott, and I'm in 2nd grade, and I attend Amanda C. Rowe Elementary. I chose to come to the school board meeting because I have a few ideas to share about the proposed cell phone free policy. My first idea is that at recess, I've noticed at my school, a lot of the 5th graders and 4th graders, they use their phones at recess. And when 2nd grade has recess, we actually have fun and play and talk with our friends instead of actually just looking at their phones. And my second idea is that some kids' families can't afford phones, and if this policy isn't put in, these kids without cell phones, their friends would probably be using them at recess and not really talking to them or playing, and they'd be playing all alone. My final reason is that the impact that this has taken, because I have 3 cousins and they're teens, and there's 3 of them. So whenever I go over to their house, it's usually they're all on their phones. And whenever I say a greeting like, hi, whatever their name is, how are you doing? They just say hi back, while staring at their phones and not even answering my question. So, and this proves how kids can get so addicted to their phones. It's like they're just listening to one part of what I'm saying. They're not even listening to the question of it. They're just staring at their phones and thinking of the best possible answer to seem like they actually heard it. And yeah, so I give my full support to this policy because I'm feeling when I'm in middle school, I probably won't have a phone, and I don't want other kids to have phones and me just playing all by myself. So thank you.
Thank you. We're going to go to Erica online. Go ahead, Erica.
Thank you, Sarah. My name is Erica Lee Winship. I live at 26 Fall Lane in Portland, and I'm a teacher at Portland High School. First, I just wanted to say that I'm really happy this debate is happening. And as a parent of a teenage girl and a 20-year-old boy, I know we need to have a lot of tough conversations around cell phones, and I really welcome this. Yeah, unlike some of the other commenters, who, by the way, have made great points, I do have a few concerns that I'd like to raise and some questions about the proposed ban at the high school level. First, I'm disappointed that we're moving full steam ahead on a cell phone policy when we haven't heard anything around de-escalation training or progressive discipline policies that came to light in the case of the public hearing of Mr. Murph this winter. I believe a safe school environment, along with continued dedication to improving operating procedures in this district, should be our top priorities. And so I'm a little bit concerned about how much time has been spent on the cell phone policy, which does need work, don't get me wrong, but I think there's some other things we need to think about first. And I say this because while I'm not necessarily 100% opposed to this policy, I do think it's dead in the water without clear and progressive consequences for students who refuse to follow it. And there will be those students. As I stated in an earlier engagement session, I haven't seen a lot of willingness to commit to student accountability from the central office staff or this board. So I'm just left wondering how this particular issue will be any different. Second, the timing of this significant change feels a little unfair for people who work in schools. And while maybe some schools have been talking about this for a long time, it feels pretty new to Portland High. It's May, and we'd be looking at a final vote in June, which doesn't really leave any time except for summer for administrators and teachers to really dig in deep and figure out how this would best work in their building. It's a huge change, so I feel like a little more time would be helpful to kind of work it out. Because as we've seen with other initiatives, if you don't really have a clear plan and you can't kick it off with a lot of clarity and a lot of expectations, it goes south real fast. Third, I've noticed that virtually no Portland High teachers are speaking in favor of this ban. And I'm wondering, have you considered that this is because Portland High is following the current cell phone policy and it's actually working for us? Make no mistake, cell phones away during class can be tough, but it is doable. It takes dedication, leadership, and commitment to follow through and high expectations. Everyone has to be on board, and administrators have to support teachers in this, which they have been doing at Portland High. It also takes commitment to educating students around the dangers of cell phones and making sure everyone's clear about expectations around the school. Portland High does this in our classrooms, in advisory, and most importantly, in freshman seminar. We are very intentional about this, and I know it's not perfect, but we are working hard with the help of Courtney Graffius and others to teach students about how to manage their phones, what the dangers are, and to help them make good choices. And I feel like it is working. I think you need to be asking yourself why the other high schools are really struggling with the current cell phone policy, and maybe the three schools could get together and try to figure out a way to make it work for everyone. Finally, the high school kids are 3 steps ahead of you in terms of circumventing phone collection. If you ask any kid in high school today, they will tell you that they already have a plan. They already know how to get around the yonder pouches. They're going to turn in old phones. The list goes on and on about all the things they're going to do. And we all know that. I just want to remind you of that because we really need to have clear consequences and a clear plan in action if this is going to work. So I would just urge you to think about those things and to consider a differentiated plan that maintains at least the current practice at high school and to use Portland High as a model for how to do this effectively because it is possible to manage phones at school.
Hi, America.
Hard, but it works. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll come in the room now and do a few in person.
Good evening. Thank you so much for allowing me to share tonight. My name is Lindsay Mayeli, and I'm a Portland resident at 93 Dorothy Street. I'm a mother of a rising 1st and 5th graders and a former high school teacher. I'm here to share my support of a bell-to-bell ban on cell phone use for our schools. As a teacher, I'm in support of this to alleviate the pressure from our teachers. Having cell phones put away for the entire school day will allow for more focus during valuable instruction time, fewer bathroom breaks, less distraction during transitions, and arguably most importantly, huge benefits to our students' social, emotional, and mental health. As a parent, I'm concerned with the staggering data that shows the correlation between rising mental health challenges among our youth and their cell phone and social media use. With a bell-to-bell ban, we can ensure that during the school day, kids will not be glued to their phones during free periods and lunch, but will be more free to engage in eye contact and meaningful conversations with their peers. It will support an environment that is more conducive to learning, as the distraction of notifications going off in their pockets or feeling compelled to check social media between classes or on bathroom breaks will be eliminated during the school day. We can't control how cell phones are used outside of the school hours, but with this policy in place, we could at least help alleviate much of the distraction and negative effects of cell phone use and social media use for our students and teachers. School-provided and regulated devices have a place in enriching the learning environments for our students in this digital age that we live in, but in my opinion, personal cell phones do not. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm a junior at Portland High School, and I am opposed to this policy. I think that it is necessary.
Could you tell us your name?
Sorry, my name is Ella.
Perfect. Thank you, Ella.
I think that it is important that we have some sort of policy in place for cell phones. They are a detriment to learning in their just existence. However, a bell-to-bell ban doesn't achieve what needs to be achieved. Basically, students already are able to get around policies that we have. A bell-to-bell ban would only further alienate students and make them less willing to engage in those policies. At Portland High School, I agree with Miss Lee Winship and what she said. We do have a pretty effective policy. We have phone hotels, and from my experience, a lot of people use them. If we were to do a bell-to-bell ban, we would get rid of that, and there would be people would just have them in their bags, would have them in their pockets. That would kind of lead to more ability to use them in a way. Also, I will be honest, I want to have my phone in school. However, I want to have it for safety. I leave school for lunch practically every day, multiple times a week. I'm walking around the city of Portland. I want to be able to contact people if I get hit by a car or if I'm getting followed. I feel like that's a safety that is very important. I know that cell phones are a choice that we make to use. However, they are ingrained in the current world, and to get rid of them would be to kind of just ignore that. And they are a valuable tool for communication. Another point that has been brought up a lot, which I think is an interesting one, is the use of home computers. However, school computers, they are blocking lots of sites that we use, which make them practically impossible to use in a lot of contexts, and they're really difficult to use for school in a lot of ways. For example, in my coding class, I have been on 3 different websites for coding that have all been subsequently blocked by the school administration standards that deem them social media, social networking sites. Also, in my health class, sophomore year, we did projects on, sorry.
No, it's okay. You still have 30 seconds.
Okay.
Left.
We did projects on sex ed, on drugs, on all these things that we could not research on school computers because of all the blocks. We need phones for that, and they're vital for all of those things that we can research, and most importantly for communication, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to go ahead and take Mallory online. Mallory, whenever you're ready, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Mallory Haar. I live at 289 Deering Ave. I'm a teacher at Casco Bay, and I'm a pre-K parent. And I'm going to just be brief. I, first of all, want to really, the comment from our Deering colleague who spoke a few people ago about the sort of saga of phone management really resonated with me. And I just want to lift up the fact that her experience is my experience, and I think many of my colleagues' experience. But more to the point, I love working at Portland Public Schools, and Portland Public Schools uses research-based best practices. We do that for reading instruction. We do that for social emotional learning, right? We are professionals, and it's an honor to work amongst the excellent colleagues I have. And in this instance, the research is overwhelmingly in support of a full cell phone ban. I could point you to a recent a report from the Ethics and Public Policy Center, which looks at a number of different full cell phone bans across the country and internationally. And three things happen when you ban cell phones. There's a reduction in behavior issues. There's a decrease in students accessing specialists for mental health crises. And there's an increase in academic achievement. So I think that in this case, to ignore this research is a form of educational malpractice. And I really want to support the board to keep moving forward with this work. And if parents or school board members need any further convincing, I would invite you to come and at lunchtime and walk around and see the amount of students that sit with their peers, do not talk, and look at their phones for the entire lunch period. I believe we can do better by our kids, and I believe that banning cell phones while in the school day is a common sense first step. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, coming up.
Hi, good evening. My name is Axel Townsend, and I am a junior at Portland High School. So I want to begin by talking about, I just want to say that I fully support the intent behind this policy. I believe that monitoring phones and limiting any distraction during class is very important, and it does lead to an overall better experience for the teacher and the student, everyone involved. But I believe, and I'm kind of echoing what other Portland high school students and alumni have said here, that I really have not seen this phone distraction as an issue at all in my day-to-day life at Portland for any of the 3 years that I've been there. I think that the policy that we have implemented with the phone hotels, the teachers do a very good job at implementing that, and I believe that for that reason, the teachers that I have discussed with concerning this policy, their worries fall more so on if they will be in charge of implementing this, and will that put a burden on their educational time. So I would like to say that I believe that if we moved more towards, as Ms. Lee Winship said, a more Portland High School type phone policy, I think that we could see success in other schools. I also just was a little bit concerned about the lack of student involvement on this, just considering so many concerns that have been voiced by so many that I feel like haven't been addressed fully, a lot surrounding how it will be implemented, and little I don't know, dismissals in sports, little aspects of it. I just feel like there's a lot of questions unanswered and a lot of student voices that weren't heard. I know that there were conversations facilitated, however, I just don't know how many voices that actually reached, considering how fast this bill moved or this proposal moved. So I would just like to finish by saying that I would just encourage the board to maybe spend a little more time listening to the voices of teachers, students, just everyone involved, and hopefully working to address more of the core reasons behind this disengagement, because phones are obviously an issue, but there is clearly also an engagement issue that might not just be about the phone. So I would just urge the board to look at this a little bit more closely before moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Coming up.
Hello, my name is Lisa Scally. I am the mother of a junior at Portland High School who spoke just earlier. And I'll be brief. I'm a practical person. And so when I think about the implications of putting this policy in place across the board in terms of dropping off phones in the morning into these pouches, I just see a giant line at the TSA in the airport. And we all know how much we like those lines. I think it's impractical to think that this is going to work and be efficient and fluid in the morning and in the afternoon. And while I appreciate the intent, I do, I think more thought has to be put into how it will be implemented. I don't disagree with phones not being in the classroom. And as many Portland students have said, the phone hotels are effective. They work. The kids put them in there and they don't touch them. My final point is, as a parent, I need to be in touch with my daughter very often during the day as plans change, practices are canceled, weather affects things. And if I can't be in touch with her, it just makes everybody's life more complicated and appointments are missed and everybody gets frustrated. So I believe that there is a middle ground on this policy. I think more time needs to be taken to consider how to effectively implement it. And I agree with the voice of the student who just spoke. I think the students do need to be engaged a little bit more in this conversation. That way you'll have the buy-in that you want. Thank you.
Thank you. You can come on up. And if there is anyone on Zoom that would like to give public comment, if you can put your hand up, I will move you into the queue as we have space. Go ahead.
Hi, good evening. Kimberly Elder. I am a teacher at Portland High School. I'm a parent, and I'm also a taxpayer. Any ban creates divisions and never-ending arguments. Well-meaning people become polarized on immovable sides. This is the opposite of what we strive to do in education. To be clear, I believe in the overwhelming data that demonstrates the numerous ills of phone use. I hope we can all agree on the science. However, the proposed policy is fraught with inequities. To quote the equity definition for Portland Public Schools, equity is achieved in the Portland Public Schools when there are no identifiable differences in outcomes and experiences for any population subgroup, end quote. I have read the exception clause in the policy, and it is very limited. For example, is the teen parent in my classroom an exception? Is my new arrival multilingual student an exception? He relies on a translation app to connect with his teammates about rides to practice. Are his English-speaking teammates an exception, as they also rely on translation apps to respond and connect? Is the high school student who works in the morning or in the afternoon, or goes to an internship or an immigration appointment an exception? What about the pair of brothers who coordinate daily and are responsible for their little sister? Is the Arabic speaker an exception? The district does not provide keyboard mats for students who use alternative alphabets. Her Chromebook is essentially useless. This is the reality of our high schools. We are not Bath, not Los Angeles. We are unique, as are our needs. Equity is not a blanket approach where a 7-year-old and a 17-year-old are treated the same. Equity is not a term to be used when convenient. Equity does not happen when the decision makers make decisions based on aspirations rather than reality. Equity can look different. Perhaps there are no devices at the elementary level. Perhaps the middle schools pilot a device-free year with pouches. Perhaps one high school wants to pilot a program while the other high schools choose to strengthen existing policies. But never has a ban solved the problem. Power struggles will continue to exist. Classroom management will still be needed. Technology debates will continue. Please remember, the school day is only 7 hours. The majority of deep phone use happens in the additional 17 hours. This ban will not solve the mental health crisis. A phone ban at school cannot replace clear and firm boundaries at home. Please also keep in mind that it is unreasonable to ask our administrators and my colleagues to become human keys or phone police. We are far too busy educating our youth.
Thank you. We're going to go to Sylvie online. Sylvie, go ahead.
Hello, I'm Sylvie Holmes. I'm a junior at Portland High School. And I want to first start by saying that I agree with all the science behind the phones, how harmful and addictive they are to students. But I'd like to say that because of those studies, it's kind of been proven that the phones are too addictive, that students are going to find ways around it. They're so addicted to their phones that they're going to find loopholes to get them in school. And I think teaching students to be sneaky is not like the way that the board should be going about this. I think students need to be taught values of trust and responsibility with their phones so that they can carry on those values in their future lives and their jobs. And I agree that I understand that this is maybe a policy meant for teachers to remove one of their struggles with fighting students about having their phones. But I think that with this new policy, students will still have to fight students over, the students that will find their ways around it will be just another issue. And I think what really needs to be implemented is a universal policy where teachers either collect phones and put them in the phone hotel at the beginning of each class, like we see at Portland High School, or a policy where if your phone is used in class, it's taken and brought to the principal's office or something like that. I think that the issue is going to keep happening with this new policy, and we just need to find a more structured method that will have less. I just think there's so many problems with the practicality of this policy, and I think what teachers at Portland High School have been really saying is that they just want to feel supported by administration and just have a policy that can apply to all. That would mean not necessarily a bell-to-bell removal, but a class-by-class schedule where students have to put their phones away for that class. And I think it really works in the classes in Portland because they're so engaging that students don't feel a need to be on their phones, and they actually use them as
30
tools.
seconds.
Okay, thank you. And I urge the policymakers to consider this, and rather than banning phones and forgetting the values that they're trying to teach their students, rather teach students self-control and how to properly use phones. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, you can come on up.
Hi, my name is Ernest Braun. I am a Portland resident, 171 Congress Street, and I'd like to voice my strong support for this proposed change in rules from two perspectives. Firstly, as a dedicated substitute teacher at Casco Bay High School and previously as a classroom teacher at Portland High School. Secondly, the other perspective I'm speaking from is as a 24-year-old who has had an iPhone throughout high school, myself. But before I begin, I would just like to return to some discussion of the concept of equity, and I just wanted to maybe reground the conversation and say that it's my understanding that much of the research and studies around the topic of phone use in schools has pointed to phone bans being a move in favor of equity and in enhancing the access of all students to what we are trying to do in our school system. But I'd like to talk about my experience as a teacher. As a building substitute, I see just about every corner of the school. In the span of one day, I might teach a freshman bio class, then provide support as an ed tech in 12th grade social studies, then work as a special ed one-on-one, then go back to teaching freshman bio. So I'm just trying to say that I've seen basically every kind of classroom and learning environment that we practice. And the only common denominator between all of these environments is the negative impact of cell phones and related technology. I do not believe that I have seen in a single classroom in any school I've worked in, not one, not a single classroom that has been without the challenges of managing personal technology. And others have gone into further detail about what this looks like in the classroom. So I'd like to use the rest of my time to talk about my somewhat unique position, or relatively unique position, as both a teacher and a member of Gen Z. As I said, I've had an iPhone since I was in 8th or 9th grade. And since I was in high school, social media apps have only become more shamelessly exploitative of our attention, and personal technologies such as AirPods and smartwatches have only worked their way further into our lives. 10 years ago, I wish I had this policy. It would have saved me years of recovering my attention span, seeking support for my mental health, and most significantly to me as a lover of learning, I would have been able to engage so much more deeply with my learning and my peers and now with my students. So I'd like to end just by acknowledging that our current relationship with technology, no matter the role we play with regard to the school system, we have an addiction. This is what an addiction looks like. And this change in policy will be extremely difficult for students, for parents, for school administrators, for teachers in many cases. But I'm here to say that this is the kind of difficulty that will lead to growth. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to see if there's anybody else that needs to give public comment first. Coming up. Go ahead.
Hi. Excuse me. Hi. My name is Kate McAleen. And first, I'd like to say thank you so much because it was a little over a year ago that I stood before you last year to request more mental health support at Rowe Elementary. And through your advocacy and your implementation of that, we are now meeting the needs of our students in a way that was impossible last year. So I want to thank you for that. I'm also I'm deeply happy that you're initiating and welcoming such a deep conversation about such an important issue as this cell phone ban. So thank you. And I'm also really encouraged. I get emotional up here. I'm also really encouraged by the boundaries conversation that you guys are having around the elementary schools. I'm a proud Portland public school employee at Rowe Elementary as the school counselor. And it is such a richly diverse, amazing place to work and be. I'm also a parent of 2 students at Longfellow. And I say that with a little bit of embarrassment because it doesn't reflect the rest of Portland. And I can't have those rich conversations that I have with my students at Rowe. My second grader's not having that. And my kindergartner's not having that. So I'm so encouraged that you're looking at shifting the boundary lines. I think scenario 4 looks really promising. If you're pausing to reconsider a K through 2, 3 through 5 situation, I ask you to please dive really deeply into the research of whether that's developmentally appropriate, because going from downstairs in second grade to going upstairs as a third grader is the appropriate developmental shift. Starting with a brand new admin, school counselor, social workers, all of that, that's not the appropriate shift. And the beauty that happens when I have a 5th grader that I helped support get a leadership opportunity with 1st graders in specials this year, this has been life-changing for him. Mm-hmm. We have 3rd graders reading to kindergartners. If you want to see community and how much a 5th grader can impact a community, please go to a Presumpscot community meeting. You will be moved beyond belief. So thank you so much for having these really challenging, rich conversations. I'm excited about scenario 4. I know that there's a lot of support in the Longfellow community for that too. We want a diverse, dynamic, robust school that has an enrollment at about 330 like it did in 2015. And I'm really grateful that you're giving us opportunity for feedback in early June. Thank you for your hard work.
Thank you. We're going to go online now to Alberto. Alberto, go ahead.
Hi there. I just wanted to give my feedback, both as an educator for over 20 years in the classrooms and as an administrator for the last 3 years. So I was witness to classes before cell phones and classes after cell phones. And there's no doubt about the learning loss that has happened since cell phones have taken over the classrooms. And I think more important than any other argument is the aspect of mental health and how detrimental it is to students and their daily lives and their interactions and their social development and so many other developmental aspects that are negatively impacted. And there's no, all of the things that I hear in favor of it, they don't outweigh the negative aspects. And I just don't see any reason why they need to be in the room. And even just the fact that we have to have so much energy and conversation about something that doesn't add any value to education. Sure, they're a tool, they're an important tool, and they have their uses, but in a classroom and in school, they're a luxury. They're a privilege. They're not something that is needed. And I think that's something that's lost because people have grown up with them in their every aspect of their lives. The issues and the challenges that I've heard are things that have been solved, have been done. Even here in Maine at Morse High School, we've seen it. I've spoken to large high schools in Ohio who have implemented phone-free environments, in Morse, in Vermont, and all the questions that people have, they've addressed, and they've addressed it with a little bit of thinking and handled it very gracefully and has not posed to be a challenge. The aspect of emergencies and crises, law enforcement has said that they do not want phones in the mix, in the equation, in emergency situations. The issues of people coming in and out of buildings are things just like in any classroom. You establish a routine, and after a few weeks, it's smooth. You teach people how to do it, how to come in and out, how to go get your phone when you have to leave for an emergency, for sports. It will actually help in many ways in terms of keeping track of our students leaving and entering buildings, which is always a challenge. We will see that students will come to get their phones and will know that they're leaving the building. I just don't see any good reason to have cell phones in classrooms, except for in a very tiny percentage. And the last thing I would say is I agree with educating the responsible use of technology alongside introducing phones at a time that is developmentally appropriate. And imagine we're trying to teach children how to eat healthy and avoid sugar, and at the same time, we're in an elementary classroom, and we have a giant bucket of candy that's openly accessible and not monitored, and we say, hey, don't touch it. It would be inappropriate to expect students not to reach into that candy jar and pull out candy, just like it's inappropriate to expect kids to have their phones on their person and not be distracted by it. So I hope that we remember that the most important thing is our students, their education, their mental health, and their development, and we get phones out of education. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll take another couple in person. Come on up.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Nika Smith, and I live near Deering High School. I currently have 3 students attending different high schools in the district. I'm here to express my significant concern about the proposed policy, and I would ask the board not to pass the policy. I feel firmly that the policy is not necessary at the high school level, as schools already have a policy language around cell phones and device usage. Having kids in multiple schools at the high school level in this district, I can personally see the differences in implementation of the policy and how this is managed. So I agree with many of the previous commenters saying we need to slow roll this. Think about how, does it need to be a blanket for the entire district? Do we take the next academic year to pilot different things in different schools and then reassess for the following academic year? I think that might be an appropriate approach. I do think that cell phones probably do not belong in elementary school for the most part, and middle school is always a gray zone for me. So as an administrator myself, I believe this proposed policy is fraught with implementation challenges. So what are the reasons for this? I have 4 primary reasons. One is commerce. Our students leave, they have open campuses at the high school, and they leave for lunch. They primarily have digital money, not cards, but actual digital money that require phones to purchase food. We have students who leave one school and travel to another location for their education for the opposite parts of the day. What happens there? If they can't have their phone to go, how do they buy gas on the way if they need it? So that's a commerce issue from my perspective. The second is safety. Just last week, one of my students called me frantically mid-morning from the restroom of her high school here in Portland as she was being threatened by another student with assault, bullying, and harassment. By having her phone, she was able to contact me during her full-blown panic attack that resulted from this event. I was able to give her logical advice to shelter in place until another adult arrived. I called the school twice asking for additional adult intervention. I remained on the phone with her while still in the restroom. I heard the other students screaming in the bathroom and outside the bathroom, threatening my child for the 6 to 10 minutes it took for appropriate intervention at the school. The results and the findings by an investigation from school building administrator was that the other student harassed, bullied, and threatened violence during school hours. Our family experiences these situations once to twice a month based on race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, body type, and neurotype in Portland public school high schools. We also live in a city where homeless people have been found sleeping and wandering in our schools without approval. We have a city where police accidentally arrested one of our students this month, immediately adjacent to our school. And we have a community where our students are verbally and physically threatened while inside our school buildings during school hours. As soon as we can make them safe, maybe we can get rid of phones, but we have kids that actually need phones. And I'm not talking about with the police in the building. I'm talking about every week, every day, every month harassment. This policy has the potential to decrease attendance for some of our most at-risk students. And if you have to approve this, which I'm asking you not to, I would encourage the slow roll, perhaps exempting 11th and 12th graders as they have been encouraged and allowed to use these devices for over a decade. So that maybe start at the middle school and then roll to the high school. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on up.
Hello, my name is Jack Meal. I'm a Portland resident. I live at 171 Congress Street, and I've worked in the Portland Public Schools for 3 years, all at Casco Bay as a dedicated substitute teacher, a math teacher, and currently as an ed tech. And I would just like to say a few words in support of the cell phone policy. So in my experience as a student at the Portland Public Schools and as a teacher, it is clear to me that one of the most important components of teaching is the relationship that I'm able to build with my students and the relationships that these students are able to forge with their peers. These are relationships that are characterized by trust and a feeling that teachers are supportive adults that students can turn to in their lives. It is also very obvious that these relationships are significantly more difficult to create when students and teachers must navigate the powerfully addictive forces of cell phones in schools. While the current policy states that high school students only may use electronic devices between class periods and during lunch periods, this unfortunately places teachers in a position where they must enforce the policy on an individual level, creating an additional layer of tension between teachers and students at the beginning of and throughout each class, which does not need to be there. All of this harms the relationships that we are trying to build with our students and distracts from learning. In every single classroom that I have substitute taught in, every single one, and taught myself or pushed into support as an ed tech, this struggle between students and their phones is present. The fact that it is present in all of these classrooms is not a failing of teachers, but a symptom of these highly addictive devices. Lastly, on multiple overnight school trips I've been a part of, such as our senior quest or junior journey trips, where students are all required to check in phones at the beginning of the trip and where they're returned at the end, it's obvious that these students are more engaged with their coursework, their teachers, and their peers. Obviously, there are students who skirt this rule and find ways to use their phone regardless, but the norm that these devices are not allowed to be out is enough. The phones stay away, and there's an opening for deeper learning and engagement. This exact type of situation is mirrored in the new policy language, which states that we will develop a process of collecting cell phones and other communication devices for safe storage at the beginning of the school day, redistributing them after classes. This language removes the need for the teachers to have this individual battle with students and allows us to focus on the real important aspects of teaching, which are engaging our students in rigorous academic work and caring deeply for the human beings who are in front of us. I appreciate that there are logistical challenges to work through to implement this plan effectively, but I think that these challenges really pale in comparison to the mountain of research which indicates that these are dangerous and harmful devices for our students. I think it's time for us to listen to the research and try and create an environment where students can effectively access their education and the caring teachers who are in front of them. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to go to Alexa online now. Alexa, go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Can you say that again?
Can you hear me?
Now we can. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. My name's Alexa. I'm an 8th grader at Lyman Moore, and at my school, Lyman Moore Middle School, just to specify. At my school, the policy is that we have to have our phones in our backpack and off for the whole entire day, and I personally follow that rule. And when it comes to this policy, my concern with not having our phone at school at all is safety. When it comes to needing to leave at the end of the day, where people get picked up by the parents and they go on buses to get home, I think it's important to be able to contact our parents, so we know where they are and they know to pick us up. And as my dad has spoke before, and he previously stated that there are club meetings where sometimes I'll stay late at school, and it's important for them to be able to contact me when I stay that late at school. And sometimes plans for club meetings get changed, and they have to know that a club meeting has been canceled, so I'm able to get home at the end of the day. And when it comes to the mental health aspect of using phones, kids will still use their phones when they get home. They'll still be on social media and TikTok and Snapchat and Instagram, and that can still affect their mental health at home. So just completely banning them from school won't automatically solve that issue. And also, mental health doesn't just have to do with like your phone. People also get bullied at school, and bullying has been a topic that has been like covered since like pre-K, and it still happens. Like I've seen it happen at my school. And so I don't think it's just like the phone that has to do with that. So I'm not saying that having phones during school isn't an issue, but I just don't think this is the way to go about this. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, come on up. And if there is anyone else on Zoom that would like to give public comment, please put your Zoom hand up.
Good evening. I'm Anna Cohen, 19 Anson Road. I'm a parent of 2 students at Rowe Elementary, and I'm here to express support for proposed changes to the cell phone policy. Well, as we heard, the negative impacts of smartphones on young people extends far, far beyond what we can control during the school day. A well-planned bell-to-bell, phone-free policy is one of the few concrete systemic actions we can take as a community to begin addressing alarming trends in youth mental health, behavior, and academic performance. I urge you to help Portland students take this important step. Transitions like this do require sometimes painful changes and increased support for school leaders and staff. Students and parents alike will have to adjust their behaviors and the way they communicate, but that's not impossible. And it's no reason to delay action. Students' academic growth, social development, and overall well-being and safety must come first. A clear district-wide all-day policy removes pressure from individual teachers and creates a consistent school culture that benefits everyone. The payoff for student learning, for social development, and for teacher morale is absolutely worth it. Thank you for your time and for your leadership on this issue.
Thank you. Come on up.
Hi, I'm David Burke. I'm a resident of Portland. I live at 29 Glen Garden Street. Thank you for having this forum. I know this is a lot. You guys have a lot of work to do. I appreciate the broader community outreach you've been doing to hear everybody's voice. I don't have anything particularly new. I will add this to a couple of things. The bullying issue is driven in a large part by, it's magnified as a quantum by the presence of the phones. Almost every discipline problem we see in the schools has some connection to a phone and some velocity, some acceleration that's happened from it. I know for a fact my own nephew, not in Portland schools, was beat up in a bathroom on the last day of middle school and was filmed with a phone, posted, and it ruined his life. He's on his 4th high school now, and he showed up the first day at a new school in a new town, and he walked off. And we heard about it from somebody 3 towns away from the school he was actually in. That was posted because the kid posted it immediately. And he walked off in a new school in a new town. And as soon as he got off the bus, a girl from they'd never seen him said, "You're the kid. You're the one. You were the one who was beat up in the bathroom." And just this would never happen. We had here at Casco Bay, where I've worked, I was one of the founders of this school. We went, I don't know, 10, 15 years without a fight here because students would intervene when a fight happened. They would stop it. They would try to get the community back together. They would try to generate some peace. Once the phone came in, now as soon as something happens, everybody breaks it out to film it and they want to post it. And you know that's true. You've seen it. Every time, every single time. And then people are on stage and they can't back down. So these phones are not making kids safer from bullying. They're accelerating bullying. They're adding it to it. If we want to think about what kind of schools we want, what kind of life we want for these kids, for our students, this is our last chance, these last few years, for them to build these brains easily, to develop the cognitive skills, the ethical skills, the moral skills that they need, that everybody needs. You're not going to get it if you have a phone in your hand. I mean, there's some age somewhere between kindergarten and 35 where somebody could be safe with the phone, that it's safe with the phone. The idea that somebody who's 13 to 18, it wasn't me when I was that age. And I don't think it's the students I meet who are better kids than I was. It's just got to happen, and it's got to happen now. This is the time, this is the moment. We know the results. We see it all over every school that's gone through this. The students are happier. The schools are better. The outcomes are better. It's that simple. This works. Thanks.
Thank you. Got one more online and then you'll be able to come up again. Gary, online, go ahead.
Hello, Gary Gurney, 67 Summit Park Avenue, Portland. I just want to speak in favor of the cell phone ban. I've heard a lot of good questions about how it's implemented, but what's interesting is I don't think a single person actually has said that they thought at core it's a bad idea. It's more about implementation. Change is always difficult in any large situation or organization. And I think rather than being afraid of change and thinking we can't do it, I'm hoping that the Portland schools and the administration pulls up their bootstraps and says, we actually can do this and we can figure it out. There's going to be some bumps in the road, but I don't think we should think so diminish ourselves and think that this can't be implemented in a short time. Furthermore, just a little meta view on this is just to keep in mind that my child is in a high school where kids go to the bathroom in every single class and disappear for 20 minutes. And in the meantime, she can't go to the bathroom because there's a kid in the bathroom on their phone, even though bathroom breaks are supposed to be 5 minutes long. And that this happens literally in every single class she does. Many, many bathroom breaks are taken. It's amazing how small bladders have gotten. The meta view, however, is the people that design these phones, social media that is so addictive, do not have our children's best interests at heart. They have the shareholders of these large corporations at heart to make more money and to make these things so addictive that you can use them hours on end and not really think anything is wrong. Contrasted to something like drugs or alcohol or vaping, you can take that stuff so much you'll get physically sick. But these devices are designed to keep you going and going and going and going and going. So that's kind of the backdrop of what we're up against, and we can't do anything about it outside of the schools. But to keep our children's in our hearts, in our minds, their education, their well-being for the time that they're in school, building community, building positive social relationships, the ability to focus and hopefully make better choices when they leave school. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, come on up. And we're going to make an exception. Usually people can only give public comment once on one topic, but I believe in giving exceptions to students. So go ahead.
My name is Ronan Woodford. I attend Castle Bay High School, which is of course where we are. And for just a showing of how engrossed I think I am in this community, I live at 61 Stylot Street, which is through the woods. I go here every day. I walk here. I walk to my extracurriculars. I don't think today I went home at 2:50 and I was physically shocked. And I think I am in full support of a cell phone ban for elementary school. And I think the middle school level is iffy. And high school, the full ban is, I think, then to outlandishness. Says, I think what I've noticed in every classroom I've ever been in is the amount children use their cell phones is directly correlated to the amount of respect and I would say love they have for their teachers. For an example, one of my classes, nobody uses their phone. I think I see one phone per day in this class, and I've never heard a bad thing about that teacher. But you hear if a teacher's not well liked, a lot of times phones are used more, which sucks. I think all my teachers are fabulous. I cannot stress that enough. There's not a single teacher I think is doing a bad job, but I think that respect really carries so much with students, and I think especially when we look into administration and the principals, the vice principals here, the dean of students, I think we're walking a real tightrope. I think we've always been. I think I hear so much bad about every principal, every vice principal I've ever had, and I think at my high school level, it's deviating, which I love. But I think a cell phone ban will make of course, the administration and the teachers have to act harsher. And I think it would be truly saddening if the general student body disliked any of the staff members at Castle Bay. I believe that I've never really had like a whole horrific experience with one, and I think that it's just really sad that a ban like this could make a student lose faith in their teacher or in their vice principal or in their dean of students.
Thank you. We're going to go online to David. David, go ahead.
Good evening. My name is David Hopkinson. I live at 9 Grafton Street here in Portland. I am a substitute teacher in the district, but I'm speaking today more as a parent of a, freshman at Portland High School and a 6th grader at Lyman Moore Middle School. I saw a quote online the other day. Of course, it was online because that's where we all live. That just said, never in history has a group of people recorded themselves doing so much, doing so little. And I think a gentleman a couple of people ago spoke to that where, fights will break out. Kids will grab their phones instead of intervening. And we've seen that. We saw it, unfortunately, with the athletic director in the middle school and things of that nature. And although I am for a ban of phones, I think that where I would want to start would be the enforcement of the policies that are already in place. My freshman believes that in the school there are larger problems than a cell phone that he would like addressed, particularly vaping and other drug use in the bathrooms. My middle schooler doesn't. I've actually texted him during school, even though I'm not supposed to. He does not respond to me, which is very responsible of him. But the final thing I just wanted to briefly state is, as a substitute teacher, obviously, students will try to take advantage a little bit more than their regular teacher, which is absolutely fine. But I've found leading by example tends to work quite well in the classroom as well. And I'd suggest that if a ban is to be put in place, that maybe teachers and administrators as well begin to move away from that style of communication, as there are phones in each one of the classrooms, which is what we're asking students to use. I think that might be beneficial for students to see teachers move away from using cell phones. Another person also said, 7 hours of the day is different than the 17 hours that they're home, and that's absolutely true. And I don't know if necessarily removing phones for 7 hours is going to make a large impact on the addictiveness that these devices have on children. But I do think it's a good place to start. But before a full-out ban, again, I'm just going to reiterate, let's enforce what we have. Let's not have it so that the captain of the football team on a Friday night, if he's caught with his phone, there's no disciplinary action, or if the head of the debate team, before they head out to nationals or whatever, is caught with their phone, that nothing happens. Let's have this equity and this complete blanket, clear expectation, and with that expectation, a clear, I guess, lack of a better word, punishment for being caught. If you're caught with your phone, a particular thing in the district occurs. Maybe it's taken for the day, maybe a detention is given, whatever it may be. But I think we really need to spend some time thinking about not even the implementation or the enforcement, but what does the enforcement look like? And are we searching backpacks? Are we looking in pockets? If we see a rectangle in someone's back pocket, are we now asking them? Are we patting down? It seems to be a very slippery slope for me. So I'd like to see us hold in place where we are and continue to work on the problem of enforcement of our current policies before we move on. And I'll leave it at that. And thank you all very much for your hard work.
Oh, no.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there anybody else in the room that would like to make a comment? Yeah, come on up.
My name is Stephanie Trice, and I'm the mother of a Deering High School student, and I also have taught in the Portland Public Schools, and I also graduated from the Portland Public Schools before there were cell phones. I like what Gary said earlier about the we're constantly in the classroom. Teachers are constantly struggling with classroom management, and the amount of that goes into managing kids and their cell phones is just a huge detraction from actual teaching and from being able to engage with students in a meaningful way. I think about when my son started at Deering, we didn't let him bring a cell phone with him, and he came back horrified. He said, I was the only one without a cell phone. There was an orientation activity where we all had to take out our cell phones, and I felt like a pariah. So we felt pretty terrible, and we let him start taking a cell phone to school, but we block it during the day so that there's no texting or social media with classmates, just with us. And, he thinks we're pretty draconian for that, but I've just seen it myself, having taught in classrooms, how hard it is, how hard it makes it for our teachers, who are already working so hard, to then have to manage all these kids with all their devices. I've also worked on change management projects previously worked in the New York City public hospital system, working with, tens of thousands of people and trying to lead change. And I can't emphasize enough how important it is to look at best practices. And as much as we in Maine usually like to recreate the wheel, I think that it's really important with all the things that can go wrong. As the previous speaker said, there's so many different contingencies and difficulties that can arise. I just think it's really important to have those, I know that there's been some good research done on that, and I think really looking at the models and even maybe doing some site visits to places where they've got it working and deciding what's right for Portland Public Schools. But I really think let the other districts make their mistakes, and then let's learn from them and try to do something that would be a good systematic rollout. And sure, this, starting everything by fall 2025 might be too quick for a real serious rollout. I don't know. I mean, I know there were talks about doing different stages, and that probably makes sense. But also having a strategy so that it's a smooth rollout, because you do want these to be wins for everyone rather than something where there's a big kickback and having to roll that back. That would be disastrous. But really, for learning, most of us in this room, we learned without cell phones in our classroom, and we learned to focus on the teacher. The book Stolen Focus is another great example that talks about how cell phone use is literally engineered to steal our focus from the world around us and to addict us to. And so raising little addicts, I hate to say it, but we don't want to do that. And school is part of where they learn how to learn and how to live. So that's really an investment in our youth, and I feel that it's important to move towards a ban in whatever time frame would be most effective. And I appreciate your work on this, each and every one of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the room or online that would like to give public comment? Okay, I'm seeing no one in the room. I'm seeing no hands online. So I'm going to go ahead and close public comment. Thank you all for your thoughts and considerations. I also I'm really proud of our students for showing up across the board, and the engagement sessions have been incredibly helpful and rich. So I just am incredibly thankful to everybody that is showing up in this conversation. I do want to just remind folks that on May 27th, we have another community session here at Casco Bay High School. Anybody is welcome to join that. And on May 28th, from 5:30 to 7 at King Middle School. And at that one, we will have interpreters available for everyone there. So more to come on this. Tonight we have a first read on this policy and a workshop. So if you wanted to stay around for that, you're more than welcome. And then the vote on this will be June 10th. That is how it is scheduled so far. And speaking of June 10th, that is going to be a really big day across the city because it's election day, one of my favorite days of the year. And it's also our budget will be going to the voters on that day. Last night, the budget moved to the full city council for second read and a vote. And it was unanimously passed, which was very exciting. And I just think that we have gotten really good at a process around the budget that gets a lot of input at the beginning and works with the city so that by the time we get to the end, there are no surprises, which feels really good. So I just wanted to thank everybody in this room, educators, staff, students that were a part of that process, and to just remind folks to vote on June 10th. That is historically a lower turnout election day. So please take 5 friends to the polls. I also wanted to, I've got a couple more things to get us through, which first of all, we have a partnership with Maine Health and Nordex. There's a phlebotomy school partnership, which I talk about this every year, and I think it's amazing. Phlebotomy is like of the blood. And so we get to have 5 seniors complete this program. And let me see if I have the students' names, but they spend 5 days training at Maine Health over April vacation. And the supervisor just wanted to really call out how wonderful these students were. So just thank you to the teams across our school that got those students into that program. And then I wanted to, okay, we did our cell phones, we did our budget review, and then I wanted to just read a prepared statement about the incident that happened with the South Portland Police recently at Deering High School. So on behalf of the Portland Public School Board and Superintendent Scallon, who cannot be here in person tonight, but is on Zoom, I would like to address the situation last week when South Portland Police executed a statewide warrant near Deering High School. During this action, South Portland Police detained a Deering High School student for a short amount of time. While we understand the difficult decisions law enforcement makes, it is certainly concerning that Deering High School was not informed before police action took place within a block of the school during the school's open campus lunch. It's important to state clearly that no Deering student was at fault in this situation. In fact, the students handled a difficult and unexpected circumstance with considerable composure. For the student who was handcuffed and for the other students who witnessed this event, the experience was unsettling and potentially traumatic and was certainly not representative of the community we are creating here in the Portland Public Schools. As someone who has spent the bulk of their career working for racial equity, I know that in a racially diverse community like ours, race is part of everything. Research shows us that people of color are disproportionately impacted by policing, and that often young Black men are perceived as older than their age. It is also unfortunately common that people of color are misidentified. It is incredibly important to thoroughly examine events that occur in our community and reflect on them to understand the role of race and to learn from it. We are saddened that any student had to experience this, especially during their school lunch. We want the student to know that we will work to ensure that no one else has this experience. We collectively want to express our sincere appreciation to the Deering High School staff who were present and immediately available to support the student directly involved, as well as the counselors and other staff who provided support to students who sought it in the aftermath. Your dedication to our students' well-being is deeply valued. Superintendent Scallon has engaged in a productive conversation with the South Portland Police Chief. Chief Ahern has agreed to inform our district of planned police actions near a school whenever possible so we can proactively ensure student safety. This could include canceling open lunch, putting the school in a safety protocol, or other action to keep students safe. We have learned that the South Portland Police Department is conducting an internal review of the incident and its protocols, which we believe is crucial and a necessary step. We value our good working relationship with the Portland Police Department, who typically provides us notice or provide us with such notifications. This partnership and timely communication is essential to ensuring student safety. We, as a board and with the superintendent, are united in our commitment to supporting our students and ensuring that all schools remain safe and supportive environments for everyone in our community. I want to thank the board members for supporting this statement and for Superintendent Scallon for also supporting it as well. Yeah, and if there, I know that Board Member Ali would like to add some words. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Ali, District 2. I think that with all due respect, we know what happened, and a student got detained within our school area. I won't say if it's the exact property, but it was nearby. And it was a light-skinned student. And the premise of reason why that he was put into handcuffs is because of an identifiable piece that he was also light-skinned, or light brown-skinned, if you want to say the clear color, and he had curly hair. There's no other reason, from my perspective and from what I've read on everything. That is as if saying a white blonde child or a white blonde kid at the age of 17 probably 5'10", was going home to a location or going by a location that was a suspect. That was a suspect there, and the suspect was a blonde 20-year-old that lived there, maybe, right? These are the reasons why the city of Portland, as well as cities across the country, have been progressive in removing police from our schools because of the trauma, right, that exists. We haven't heard from that child, nor have we heard about from lots of children or lots of youth or yet lots of individuals that have faced that type of, discrepancy, I would say, right? Because it's a clear bias from my perspective, and I can speak on this because I'm also a Black man. So, in saying that, this is just really unacceptable. This is literally the reason why we don't Portland schools. This didn't happen. This didn't happen with Portland Police Department. It happened in South Portland on our schools. So, with all due respect, I would request an apology to that child, right, and that child's family, and to not go into in a personal internal investigation just to identify that, yeah, it was just an accident. No, this is wrong. Regardless, this is wrong. That child was 17 years old. He had nothing to do with it. And we can create criminals by doing this, by creating this anxiety. So I appreciate all the work that's going on with the administration as well, the school board. But I would put a real serious light on the South Portland Police Department in doing this, because Portland Police Department right now, we don't do this, right? So appreciate everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Ali Ali. Any other people have thoughts to add? So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Warren. I don't know if you have anything to present before we do a secondary schools update.
No.
Okay, perfect. So we're going to go ahead and move into secondary schools update. We have Dr. Ahmed.
Good evening. My name is Abdullahi Ahmed, and I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Secondary Schools. And tonight with me will be my colleagues Grace Venezuela, as well as Alison Dame. And I will be presenting to you the secondary schools report for the month of May. So what I'll be presenting to you with my colleagues tonight will be some highlights about the secondary schools. Also, we'll talk about the Strategic Plan Initiative 2.2. And at the end, we will talk about the Step Up Night, which was the first time ever it happened for the sixth graders, multilingual families and students. So this is the time of the year where there is a lot of celebrations and rituals at the schools. And some of the things that will be happening to this month or already happened is something at the high schools. We have Casco senior farewell or senior last assembly or awards night. So the schools have different names for it. It is the night that the schools get the students get some recognition. Some of them receive scholarships and awards. And at Casco Bay, it will be happening in June 3rd. And at Deering High School, it will happen on May 29th. And in Portland High School, it will happen on May 30th. And at Portland Arts and Technology High School, it will be a program-based celebrations. So the middle schools also have some celebrations. So eighth graders are transitioning from middle schools to high schools. So at King Middle School on June 16th, there will be a celebration for a graduation ceremony, where if you call it graduation or celebrations, to send them to the high school. It's a new beginning, as well as Lincoln Middle School will have on June 17th, and Lyman Moore Middle School also will have June 16th. Another milestone, the graduations, which is something that all of us are waiting for at both Casco Bay High School and Deering High School. They will have on June 5th, on that Thursday. In the morning, Deering High School will have their graduation at 11 o'clock, and Casco Bay will have at 6 p.m. in the evening. Both of them will take place at Merrill Auditorium. Portland High School also will happen on June 4th, on Wednesday, June 4th, and it will happen in Merrill Auditorium as well. Portland Arts and Technology High School will have a program-specific graduations and ceremonies that they will have in-house in PATH. Portland Adult Education will have on Wednesday, June 25th, 2 p.m. for the Workforce Department graduations and 6 p.m. for the high school diploma or high set students. And now I call my colleague Alison Dame to talk to us about the Strategic Plan Initiative 2.2, 6 to 8.
Good evening. My name is Alison Dame, and I'm the Director of Secondary Academics. I'm here tonight to give an update on this year's work in 2.2, which was focused this year on launching our ELA curriculum in grades 6 through 8. Apologies. Okay. So in our middle schools, principals, coaches, and teachers have worked together to expand the use of the ELA curriculum, which is now being taught in every middle school ELA classroom.
Allison, can you hit the slideshow button?
I apologize.
It's okay.
Oh, that's okay. So we did 3 walkthroughs as a district where we were walking through with principals and coaches, and we were looking for a number of look-fors, 3 of which are highlighted here. So the first was that the adopted high-quality instructional materials were in use. That was quite high back in the fall, but not universal, and we were able to achieve universal use of the high-quality instructional materials by April. Another one we were looking for is that almost all students carry the cognitive load of the learning. So the curriculum includes protocols that are designed to drive student engagement and make sure that all students are participating. So through getting better at using the high quality instructional materials, we knew that we would improve engagement. So we did several professional development sessions around this, and we saw dramatic growth in this, which we were very pleased to see. Finally, these lessons are designed to have 4 to 5 activities throughout them, and it is a dense curriculum that involves a lot of unpacking by the teachers, which they have been engaging in. But we know that our next piece of work is to continue to get better at pacing and moving through the lesson so that over the course of the year, students are exposed to all of the standards within the curriculum. And so while we saw some modest gains here, we know that this is the work that we will really take on, continue to take on next year. I also wanted to mention briefly some work that's going on in the high schools. According to the strategic plan, we're not at a place right now where we're trying to implement specific high quality instructional materials, but we did have a goal of having all leaders become more adept at using walkthroughs to move instructional improvement in their buildings, which, to be fair, was something that was already happening, but we're trying to do it more consistently across our schools. So we did develop a look-for tool for our high schools, and we did 3 walkthroughs in our high schools as well. By April, all of our high school principals reported that the walkthroughs gave them a more specific sense of what they needed to do next in terms of their instructional work in the building. So from a process point of view, that felt like a success. In terms of the look-fors we were looking for in the high school, it was really around the instructional core, which is the task grade level, and is the teacher's facilitation of that task putting the thinking on students? We also looked for some high-leverage multilingual moves around explicit instruction around academic language. And as you can see here, we did see modest gains around these look-fors. And so it also gave us a picture of where we want to lean in next year. And principals got a better picture of that through the walkthrough process. Principals also gave us some ideas about how we could improve this process for our high schools next year, including using student data to triangulate between the teacher practice we're seeing and the data. And then also they were interested in the possibility of joining one another on their intervisitations in order to learn more from one another and the practices in each other's buildings. So we're excited to integrate those aspects into our high school walkthroughs next year. With that, I'll turn it back to Dr. Ahmed.
And now I welcome Dr. Grace Venezuela to walk us through the 6th grade transition night for the multilingual parents.
And students, good evening. So last Tuesday, May 13th, we held a multilingual family orientation for students in 5th grade transitioning to 6th grade for next year. This is the first time that we've held this session, although we've always had a session for incoming 9th graders, which is critical in helping students and families in making their high school decision. The goal of this middle school transition session is to help our multilingual families understand the middle school academic rigor and academic requirements, the social and behavioral expectations of the schools, and how the structures, curriculum, and enrichment offerings differ between elementary and middle school. We wanted the students to be prepared and excited about the next phase of their educational journey. So on that day, Principal Marks of King, Principal Ayala of Lincoln, Principal Jones of Lyman Moore, along with Dr. Ahmed, Maureen Clancy, and myself were at the session to do the presentation on various topics and answer questions. There were families from different language groups, Arabic speakers, Khmer speakers, French, Lingala, Portuguese, Somali, and Spanish. So we had interpreters and they were available to assist our families. And it was really pretty good attendance that night. We were excited, most of all, about the engagement among parents and students who attended. They had excellent questions and I specifically appreciated the plain speak and direct speak of Dr. Ahmed as he delivered answers to some of the parents and students' questions. So the forum is a good beginning for families to connect with our school leaders, and hopefully it sets the ground for building trust and developing authentic relationships between school staff and families coming into our middle school. Thank you.
Thank you, Grace. And when you first came up with the idea of let's do the same thing for the rising 6th graders that we do for the rising 9th graders, and we said, why not? Let's do it. And you just pull it together in a very short period of time. So thank you. And now I would like to talking about events and things that are happening in the high schools. As Chair Lance mentioned, on Tuesday, May 13th, during the lunchtime at Deering High School, South Portland, and Portland Police Department members were conducting a search in the neighborhood area. As students were walking to buy lunch or walking or in their cars to go to the lunch, an unfortunate incident took place where guns were pointed at the students, and one of our students was handicapped and detained. I was present at Deering High School at that time, and I responded immediately to the place or to the neighborhood, assisted Dr. Giesman to redirect the students back to the school. And students were very cooperative and really collaborated with us to go back to the school and to get away from the scene. I'm thankful to them, and I'm so proud of them they did a great job. School staff promptly responded to the students who were affected by the incident. And Mr. Jellison, one of the ninth grade teachers at Deering High School, and Ms. Noor created different platforms to talk to the students and discuss with them and debrief with them about what happened. I thank all the Deering High School staff and the leaders for supporting and helping the students. The district leaders, as Dr. Chair Lance mentioned, expressed their serious concerns to both Portland and South Portland Police Department. We remain committed ensuring the safety of our students and their well-being. And again, I cannot express how proud I am about the way that our students handled themselves and how they really immediately recognized that the seriousness of the issue and then went back to the classroom and back to the school. So I wanted to also highlight that because it happened in the secondary school. So it will be a miss if I don't mention and talk about the highlights only. But thank you very much. Now, if there are any questions for the team.
Thank you, Dr. Ahmed. Questions from the board? Board Member Bryden, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you so much, Dr. Ahmed, for the presentation. I also want to acknowledge the last part of your comments and express my appreciation. I'm so glad that the district has you and Dr. Giesman and Ms. Noor and Mr. Jellison and so many dedicated and talented people supporting students. And also thank you for raising up how well our students did in that situation. I really thank you. My questions have to do with the walkthrough topic. I have two main questions. So the first question is just wanting to get a bit of a sense of how I'm assuming the Director of Data and Assessment, Haley Didrikson, is going to be involved in for next year, we want to better slice and dice the data and all that. Is it premature, or can you talk a little bit about what that might look like moving forward?
It is,
I can say a few things. So as you know, the Power School data dashboard is coming out. We already use the center point assessment, which is aligned to the curriculum 3 times a year in the middle school. And we do engage in item analysis PD with that data. I think having it, and I'm working with Haley on this, if we can achieve getting that data on Power School, I think it will just be more integrated into the whole process. And I didn't mention it specifically, but just as our high school principals were asking to triangulate, well, I would say at every level, principals, instructional coaches, and teachers are getting much more curious and wanting to see, I did this thing in my classroom. Am I seeing it in the data? This is not comprehensive, but I'll just share with you today. We were in talking to Lincoln's 6th grade team, which is 3 teachers, because they just had terrific movement fall to spring in that center point interim assessment around their students. And so now we're going to get curious about what was it that we did that contributed to that growth. And I happen to be at Lincoln, so I don't know about King and Moore. Don't take. And then I had one final point. So then another thing to be curious about is whether the hope is that it's the very same standards in Centerpoint that are assessed on NWEA, but we do not have that transparency to do the item analysis at the NWEA. So one thing that, yes, I absolutely want to work with Haley on is making sure that our interim assessment that we're choosing is the right one to help us get information about how we're doing on that summative assessment.
That was a great answer. Thank you.
Thanks.
And then my other question is, so I so appreciated, and I was, just in my head, just rejoicing about how all the percentages are going up. Yay. I'm curious about whether going into, so that we have numbers from October, January, and April, were there goals? Were there goal percentages, and how did we track to them? And then also, regardless of whether there were, are there goal percentages moving forward to next year to shoot for? I mean, I know we're going to we're going to be seeking to improve no matter what. But, there are a number of strategic plan initiatives that have, target goals. And I'm curious if this is in that category.
Yes. So I'll just answer that at the highest level because coaches and teachers set their own goals along the way. But at the highest level, we wanted 100% for that high quality instructional material being used. We were looking for 80% on structures. We didn't meet that. That's why that's a focus going forward. Yeah. And 60% around student discussion. That also has been lagging a little bit, but I'll be honest and say we're learning that the ratio of how much that shows up in the curriculum, we might have overshot that a bit, but we'd still like to see more student discussion in classes. As far as going forward for next year, we're really working to for Jesse Robinson and I to collaborate with our directors of language development. And so I think we'll keep some of those high quality instructional materials in place, and structures, we'll keep those goals and keep moving toward them. But I think we may bring in, there are protocols, for instance, around language dives, really specific to really high leverage moves around multilingual learners that I think we'll want to put at the center of our goals, because we're already planning PD that we're going to do in conjunction with those directors of language development. So that's an emerging focus.
Super. I would just say in the future, it would be helpful, at least to me, to have the goal percentages included on the slide. So particularly, 100%, yay, that's very clear. But some of the, where we started out at 38%, and we are now at 42%, it would be really useful for me to get a better sense of what did we think was a realistic goal. If the realistic goal was 41%, then that's a very different story than the realistic goal would have been at 50%. And, so that would be really useful.
Sure. Makes sense. Yes.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Other questions from the board? Oh, thank you. I'm sorry, Mickey. I haven't been looking over here. Vice Chair, go ahead.
So they forget about me. So thank you. Most of my questions been already answered. Thank you so much for the presentation. I just wonder about the different strategy how we measure the outcomes of the walkthrough process from the teacher's level and the student's level. Do we have any strategy to evaluate or to measure those outcomes on the long-term process?
Like assessment, you mean?
Yes. If we just use the survey or assessment, or we have a different strategy to measure the success and outcomes of the process.
I think center point.
Yeah. So the two that are probably the easiest to sort of display the data and make transparent are the center point and NWEA. But we do have protocols that teachers use in their collaborative planning time around the mid-unit assessments and the end-of-unit assessments, which are kind of the places in the curriculum where we see the student outcomes.
So that one is how often those assessment goes? Is like a middle of the year or just one time?
So currently we teach 3 of the modules.
Right.
Each module has 3 units. Each unit has 2 of those milestone assessments. So I'm not a mathematician, but I think that's 18, 9 times 2.
Okay, great.
Yeah. But in short, it could be like a short-time assessment, mid-time assessment, as well as like the state assessment, which is like long-time assessment. Yeah, so all 3 things that happen.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, Chair.
Anybody over here? I just wanted to say how cool it is to see how you've just been progressing and layering things over top of each other. And it just made me really excited to see the progress that you've been making in these numbers, and just kind of the way that you are combining different kinds of data, both like stories from people and the numbers. And it just it makes me really hopeful. So just excited about that. And then I was wondering if you could give an example of like on the survey that you're hoping to do about triangulating with the students, like how do you do that in a survey? Like what kinds of questions would you be asking? And is it you ask the students to help you identify like what helped them the most? Or could you talk a little bit more about what that survey might look like?
I'm sorry if I said the word survey. I think we just take the data itself and just to nerd out for a second. The importance of center point is that it's this 4-level data. So it's student, class, question, and then the standard attached to that question. So for example, we can say, okay, we're going to really focus on language dives, which is going to help students with complex syntax. We can then look at the items from the assessment.
Got it.
And see, did that extra investment in instruction impact student growth? So as you might imagine, it's a time-consuming process, but it's one I find exciting and our teachers are leaning into as well.
Awesome. And you're welcome to nerd out at any time with us. Beautiful. And then just one question, and I'm sorry if I just didn't hear it, about the transition meeting for our multilingual students. Did they get to learn about Make It Happen within that meeting? Okay, beautiful.
Yes, actually, it was presented, and Make It Happen stuff was fully presented.
Awesome. So cool for them to get to learn about that before they're even in middle school. Anything else? Let me just double check on Zoom. Okay, beautiful. Well, thank you so much for this presentation.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. And now we have the report of the do we have a timeout? We need a timeout. I could take a timeout. Let's do a little break right now. Let's do a 10-minute break. We'll come back at 8:30, and then we won't break again ever. But I could use a break. Okay, thank you. 10 minutes, please.
But it's like an interview. I mean, countries have their own like base. So they're
All right. Up next, we're back in session. Here we go.
I'm sure that.
We've got the consideration. Oh,
Sounds like it really should.
we're starting the meeting again, everyone. Thank you. We've got the consideration and action to approve the meeting minutes of May 6, 2025. Are there any corrections to the meeting minutes from May 6, 2025? Yes.
Thank you. On page 2, there are a few typos. They're just,
Can you say them out loud so that we have them in the record?
if you scroll down on page 2, it says number 2, executive session. The numbers are not right. So the first page was like 4, 5, 6, 7, and then it goes to 2, and then it goes to 13 under adjournment. And then also under that executive session section, there are 2 R's under roll, RROLL. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. So then, are there any other amendments to those minutes? Okay, then the minutes are approved as corrected. Thank you very much. And then we have personnel. Oh, there you are. I didn't see you.
I was placed and ready. So thank you. We have an administrative introduction to do today as part of our principal approval process. So I would like to introduce our new principal for Rowe Elementary, Mr. Joe Trivisano. Standing right here. I'm going to have him come up and stand next to me. I'm going to share a little bit about him and then let him take the podium so that he can share anything he wants to share that I've missed, as well as answer any questions that you may have. Mr. Trivisano joins the Rowe community and the Portland Public Schools from the public schools in Monson, Massachusetts. His tenure in Monson spans 6 years and a variety of roles. Currently, he is in his 4th year as the principal of Granite Valley School, an elementary school serving students and families in grades 1 through 6, and his 3rd year as the principal of the Early Childhood Center supporting preschool and kindergarten students. Prior to assuming the role of principal, Mr. Trivisano spent 2 years as the assistant principal of Granite Valley, and before his time in Monson, he spent 3 years in other Massachusetts school districts as a middle school assistant principal for the Southbridge Public Schools, and 3 years as a physical education teacher with the Springfield Public Schools. Mr. Trivisano holds a master's degree from Endicott College in Organization Management and a doctorate in Educational Leadership from Nova Southeastern University. He is thrilled to be joining the Rowe team. And outside of work, Mr. Trivisano enjoys spending time outdoors, traveling, and being with family. Having grown up in New Jersey, he especially enjoys supporting, now see, I might have said no to hiring you, but here we are, enjoys supporting the New York Jets, Knicks, and Yankees. Let's move along. He has a passion for coaching, in particular basketball, which he did for 6 years at the high school varsity level. Joe and his wife are excited to be moving to Maine this summer. So I give you Mr. Joe Trivisano.
Good evening, everybody. Just want to say thank you for having me tonight.
Incredibly excited about the prospect of joining the row team. I was talking to Angela tonight that the interview process was actually like the most fun interview I've ever been a part of. It's clear that the team and community of Row is just a great fit for my family and for myself. And I'm really excited for this next chapter beginning in July. You guys have any questions? I mean, feel free.
Thank you. Just so excited to have you as part of the district and the Row community, which I think you probably experienced is a real deep community and just a wonderful place to be. So we're glad to have you. Would any other board members like to offer?
Just to say welcome aboard.
Beautiful.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
Have a great night.
So probably we've welcomed him aboard. We do have to actually do a vote to approve, and I mean, I agree, don't hold all the New York team stuff against him. He and I will have conversations about that at a later date.
Beautiful. So do I have a motion for the consideration and action to approve the personnel items listed, election of administrators? Oh, everybody got in on that one. That's good. I will give it to Vice Chair Bondo. Is there a second? Thank you, Board Member Lena. Any questions from the board? Okay. Any general discussion? Then by roll call vote, please indicate whether you are in favor of the consideration and action to approve the personnel items listed, election of administrators.
Member Ali? Member Yusra Ali?
Yes.
Vice Chair Bondo?
Yes.
Member Bryden?
Yes.
Member Lena?
Yes.
Member Noor?
Yes.
Member Opperman?
Yes.
Student Representative Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Student Representative Kantiba? Student Representative Lee?
Yes.
Student Representative O'Brien?
Yes.
Student Representative Ziegler? Chair Lentz?
Yes. So the motion passes with the students voting with the majority.
Thank you.
Oh, and yes, and go ahead.
I just want to let the board know that we also have an informal meet and greet with Mr. Trevisano tomorrow morning in the Row Community Library. So
Beautiful. At what time, just in case anybody can make it?
from 8 to 9.
Okay.
So
Beautiful. Thank you for doing that. And thank you for being here. All right. Now we've got some new business tonight, which doesn't feel like new business because we've been doing this business for a while around cell phones. But we have the first read of proposed changes to policy JFCK, student use of cellular telephones, and other electronic devices. And so now we're going to move into our workshop. Dr. Warren is going to move us through that around this policy.
Great. Good evening, Chair Lentz, Vice Chair Bondo, members of the board, and student representatives and members of the public. It's good to see you from this side of the table. We've heard a lot tonight about cell phones, and we've had a lot of community engagement around this. So this is an opportunity to give a little bit more detail about the policy process and where we're at in that right now, what we're learning as we go, and where we're heading from here. So first, we'll sort of go a little bit back in time, talk about how we got to this place, talk a little bit about the case for cell phone free schools that has created the movement around this process, the actual proposed policy edits, and then some of the feedback we're hearing around as we do our community engagement. We'll walk through some of the key implementation considerations that we're working on, and then wrap up with key dates and next steps. Oops. Go back. Okay. So going sort of back in time, this has been a conversation in Portland Public Schools for a long time now, long before I ever arrived here personally, or got involved in the conversation. In January of 2023, the board updated the policy to what we've been working with, which is essentially an off and away type of policy, and a little bit of differentiation at the high school level. So with high schoolers being allowed to take out phones to use them between classes, during lunch, and that allows after school use during extracurricular activities as well. In March of this year, and we'll talk again, we'll go a little deeper into some of this history, but the committee talked about a draft policy revision that would have changed the current policy to more of a cell phone free school policy at the elementary and middle school levels, and not so much addressing high school or changing that. But after a lot of conversation and input from community, the committee asked that we go back and come up with language that would create a cell phone free school policy at all grade levels. And that is what we are looking at this evening. So there's been a lot of engagement around this. The committee looked at that language, voted to pass it on to the board. And then we began this engagement process. There's been engagement going on already, but this is sort of an engagement process that's specifically designed around this current policy revision and proposed revision. So we're here tonight on May 20th, and June 10th is the vote. So again, the current policy is around off and away with differentiation for high schools. We did have our middle school leaders in particular really made an effort this year, seeing that there were significant concerns around how the policy was being implemented, not successfully really at the middle school level. They made a lot of efforts to try to strengthen and improve implementation. They introduced more learning education for students, more conversations with families, training for teachers, and they've really worked hard to try to apply the rules more consistently and have consistent consequences across all three of the middle schools. They have seen some improvements in the course of the year. They've actually all seen an increase in the number of referrals for cell phone and electronic device violations. But that is somewhat to be expected, because when you're actually enforcing rules, it means that you're likely to get an increase in the number of reports and referrals for discipline issues. All of that said, even as this work has been going on, and one thing that one of the middle school administrators said to me was, yes, it's gotten a little bit better. We've been working on this, and students probably are still going into bathrooms and using the phones. They still have access to them. And so if what you're going for here is getting to a place where we're actually removing that distraction and that temptation, no, we have not done that yet. That's not how this current policy works. In the midst of all of this work going on, and in the attempt to apply and implement the current version of the policy, there's been growing support here in this district, in Maine and nationally, around phone-free schools. So this isn't new. It's not just this year. It's not just Portland Public Schools, but it has been growing. And one of the things that really has sparked a lot of this conversation is a book called The Anxious Generation, which came out in 2024 and got a lot of people talking about anxiety and depression among young people, and how phones and electronics and social media have really played into that. And here locally, I think the board and the administration have been hearing a lot of concerns being raised by teachers and families and others. So some of the speakers earlier referred to some of these things. There's much more research out there. These are just a few of the points that I think have moved some members of the board to this place in the committee, to a place of wanting to consider a full cell phone free policy. We've got lots of research around issues of depression and anxiety, the extent to which students nationally are really using their phones during school, and the extent to which they're receiving information constantly while they're at school. Concerns about the impact of phones and other devices, because some students will come, say, with a gaming device, the impact that that has on interaction between students at school. As you heard someone refer to earlier, lunchtime, could be a time of social interaction, but sometimes gets interrupted by students being on their devices. And then there's not just evidence around anxiety and depression, but even connections to suicidal behavior. And the addictive nature of the phone actually reducing cognitive capacity when the phone is present, drawing students' attention and cognitive sort of load away from the work at hand, the learning. So in addition to these sort of daunting statistics and areas of research around the impact of phones and electronic devices, we have also seen many schools go before us in trying out the phone-free option. It's happening all over the country. New York State is the most recent one to adopt a statewide policy. I think we're up to 8 or 9 states now that have a full cell phone-free policy. But there are many districts and schools that are doing it independently. Someone earlier suggested we go visit some. We are. Tomorrow morning, a bunch of us are going up to Bath to Morse High School to see how they are doing it. We've already had a call with them, and they talked us through their experience, which has been overwhelmingly positive. They have had just an improvement in their overall school culture. They acknowledged that it was, hard at first and that there was some resistance among students, but that actually it has ended up working well for them. So we're interested to see what it looks like in practice, and how they handle some of the issues around getting phones into yonder pouches, which is what they use, and how they work that through as a school community during the day. So in general, what we've heard from Morse and from other districts that we've talked to is consistent with what we're seeing in the media and in the research. This particular list of advantages comes from a group called the Cell Phone Free Schools Movement. Things like increased attention in class, less cyberbullying, fewer fights that are related to social media, more engagement between students and teachers and between students, improved attendance, students not calling to get taken away from school during the day. And then actually more focus leading to teachers being able to get more done in class and move faster through their lessons. More students checking out of libraries. I think I left this one out, but one of the things we've heard from some districts is actually increased visits to the nurse, because students see that there's someone on site that can help them. So I don't know if it's that they're not going to the internet to find solutions on Google. We're not maybe calling home, but actually just going and visiting the health suite, which is good news. So less frequent trips to the restroom, lunchrooms being more vibrant and social, and then less cheating and fewer issues related to stress and mental health. So the proposed revision that we're talking about, and I will, after I'm done with the deck, I'll just pull it up for a minute and we can look at the language. But just in a nutshell, the key changes that would be made are around, there's a clause that encourages students not to bring phones or devices to school if possible. It would require that if they do bring devices to school, that they put them into safe storage. I will note here, and I'll come back to this in a minute, that it's a relatively broad definition of electronic devices. It's not just phones, it's earbuds, it's smartwatches, games, etc. It would also stipulate that there would be very few exceptions to the policy. It notes some examples, but it also states that the superintendent and his team will create the associated rules, which is normal for policy creation. Usually the policy is relatively high level and fairly short. And then the details around implementation come into the rules and then associated procedures that are worked out by staff. And those change along the way as we learn and figure out how to do things better. The other thing to note is that there are some existing provisions in there that sometimes catch people's attention, but actually a lot of that language is already in the current policy and is pretty standard. So language around search and seizure is already there, and that's part of our search and seizure policy as well, or student search policy. And then the flexibility around the use of schools phones after school is pretty much the exact same language proposed here as is in the current policy. So I do want to point out to the board that we're learning constantly as we go. We've been engaged in this process and, really are listening. And I just appreciate the way that board members have come out and really been a part of these engagement sessions. And we're taking in that information constantly and kind of feeding it back into the process. So things that I would encourage the board to think about as you're considering the language of the policy itself, based on feedback that we're getting. One is just to reflect on whether you want that broad definition of cell phones and all other electronic devices, or if you would like to, in some way, broaden that, add other types of electronics to it, maybe narrow it. So we've gotten feedback in both directions that it would be helpful to have everything listed. It lists a number of things, but it doesn't list everything because there will always be more technology coming that we don't know about. And it may be a little onerous to list everything, but it may be that the board wants to spell that out more, or it could be that the board wants to put, maybe not include quite so much. So something to talk about and think about. The clause that says that students are encouraged to leave their devices at home if possible was really meant to be an encouragement to think about whether students really need to have a device at school or not, or really need it getting to and from school. But I think in many of our conversations, it seems like this has triggered a reaction among people that we're trying to tell people not to let their kids bring a device to school. And then that generates anxiety about safety moving to and from school. So it may be a distraction because it's being interpreted in ways by some people that it's not intended. So I just think the board needs to consider whether you would like to leave that language or not. The current language is focused on students not having a cell phone or other electronic device on their person throughout the school day. That was to emphasize the difference between the current off and away policy, which does really allow students to keep a phone on them, but just switched off. So the not on their person was intended to be very clear, to make a distinction that phones would not actually be on the student. But the more we research, the more we realize that it may be that the most practical and efficient way of managing this, and the best way of dealing with some concerns that have come up around liability, in case a phone gets broken or lost, would be to actually use one of these pouch systems. Yonder is one of them, but there are others, which would allow a student to keep their phone or device in a pouch that has a special locking mechanism that's controlled by a magnet. And the special magnet is only held by administrators or authorized people. And so that then allows the student to physically keep the phone with them. They just can't access it because they can't open the pouch. In order to make that possible within the bounds of the new policy, we may want to think about changing that language from not on their person, because it would actually technically still be on their person if they've got the pouch on them, to something like you must keep all personal electronic devices off and in a locked storage container or whatever. It's I think that could be massaged and played with a little bit. Consider allowing access for high school lunch off-campus programming. I think this is going to be one of the most important decisions that the board makes in the refining of the current language. There have been a lot of concerns raised and statements made about particularly students at Deering and Portland High, who many of them go off campus for lunch. When we were meeting with a whole auditorium, or half an auditorium anyway, full of Portland High students and asked how many of you go off campus for lunch, I would say 90% of the hands went up. And so this is an issue for many students, both in terms of safety and in terms of using payment apps and the like. So it's not only lunch, it's also students who leave the building to go to internships, who may travel over here to PATHs or other programs. So that is something that I think we can address some of the details of the implementation of that in the procedures and in the rules. But I think fundamentally, the board is going to need to decide whether you want to allow that exception in the middle of the day for students who are leaving the building. So again, we've had a lot of community engagement so far. There's more to come. We've had meetings with students at Casco Bay, Deering, and Portland. We've had community engagement sessions at Deering and Portland High Schools, with the Casco Bay one yet to come. And then we are planning for more, and we'll get to a survey as well. Oh, and sorry, let me just mention that the high school work group. So that group has now been meeting for quite a while, and that was created to start bringing people into this conversation about the possibility of a stricter approach to phones and getting input from different stakeholders on what that could or should look like. And that group has been really great, really digging in and getting to understand the challenges and the benefits of phones, the educational pieces to this, and are helping think through some of the implementation considerations. So just to summarize some of what we're hearing from the community, I think we've heard a lot of very positive feedback from many teachers, administrators, and families. There are others, as you heard tonight, who are less enthused about the idea, and some who are sort of interested but maybe concerned about the implementation details, how it might work, questioning whether it's truly needed or if it should be slowed down. So I think tonight's public comment was fairly representative of a lot of the feedback we've been hearing. There are a fair number of parents who just really emphasize that it's important to them that their children have the phone while they're moving to and from school. And I think it's important that as we're communicating about this, whatever happens, that the intention is not to take the phone away during the trip to and from school. This is about what happens when the student gets to school and during the course of the school day. A lot of students, I say, have raised a lot of concerns about this, and generally speaking, I think the reaction has not been terribly favorable. There have been some students who spoke up and said that they thought that it was a problem and that this, in some cases, would be a good idea. But I think in general, students have not been, at the high school level, that's where we've mostly been doing this engagement, have not been wild about the idea. I think it's also safe to say that we've heard that this is common in other districts too, and that maybe that sentiment changes after the cell phone free policy is implemented. But I think it's important that we hear our students and what they're sharing. In general, there are a lot of questions about the details of implementation. And it's hard because the policy is not meant to include all those details. And yet people want to know that if the policy passes, that all of these details are going to be worked out. And then again, there's some people who think it's a good idea, but wonder if we need to move as fast as we are. So just to touch on some of the implementation considerations, I think these are a lot of the things that people are raising and things that we are working on. And I will say that whatever the board decides, we will do and we will figure out. This can be done, and it can be done for this coming school year if we need to. We're researching different mechanisms for, storage devices. We've talked to companies that have the pouches. They can, in fact, get them to us in time. If we put the order in within the next few weeks, we can train people to use them. We can come up with systems at the school level. We can work through all of the various issues that I'm about to mention. So I think fundamentally, this is less about these implementation considerations ultimately than it is about whether the board feels that this is the appropriate thing to do. But I'm not minimizing. It will take a lot of work, and these implementation considerations are really important to people. So device storage, I think more and more as we look into this, we're probably, at least at the high school level, maybe the middle school level, looking at something like a locking pouch, just because it's much faster and more efficient than trying to actually collect phones and hold them in the office or somewhere central. It also takes away a little bit of that sense of, the school being fully responsible for all of these expensive devices, because the kids will keep them on their bodies or in their bags. So we're continuing to research that, and I think it very well might look different at the elementary level, where there aren't as many phones and where they perhaps could be stored in lockers in the office or something like that. So we need to make sure that we're adapting to the different nature of our schools and the sizes of the schools and the volume of devices that are coming in. We will have to make sure that if this happens, that there's a way for students who are either arriving late or leaving early, who are going off campus, going to another program or something, that we know what the rules and the procedures are to handle all of that. Clarifying the strengthening of communications. I think this has come up several times, a lot of concern around emergencies, emergency communications. I think some of this I take as feedback and, important, concern coming from families around just in general, how we as a district communicate in emergencies. So clearly, we will keep working on making sure that we do that well and do it better. But it's also an important opportunity for us to keep educating our students and our families and the public about what happens in an emergency. It is not a good idea. It is not what law enforcement wants. It's not what school administrators responsible for dealing with an emergency want, to have to deal with lots of people on cell phones all at one time. It actually interferes with emergency response. It creates greater danger than helping. So I'm very sensitive to the concern and the anxiety that people have, and wanting to be able to just immediately connect to their loved ones in case of an emergency. But when we're trying to manage emergency response in a school, we actually don't want cell phones everywhere. It can put people at risk. The alternative communications modes, this has come up quite a bit. People are used to now having that immediate access and opportunity to text back and forth during the day, to update each other, to check in. It's not just families, but as people have raised here tonight, coaches, sometimes it's employers, or other people that students may need to be in touch with. Other schools have dealt with this by creating a dedicated line or more than one in the school that families can call or that students can call out from, ways to collect and transmit messages to students, and different ways for athletics teams and clubs or, other folks that need to communicate with students to get to them. So these things can be done. They have been done, and many of us went to school in a time when they were done. We had other ways of communicating that didn't involve cell phones. So we know we can do it. We just have to work out what works best for this community. Other considerations, a lot of concern about what the exceptions would be. And I think it's clear, one of the most obvious cases we've talked about is a student whose insulin pump is run off of the cell phone. That doesn't seem like that would be hard to figure out or, controversial for anyone. There are other students who have a health need, a learning need that may be identified in an IEP or a 504 that we would need to account for. It doesn't necessarily mean that they use the phone for everything, but maybe for a particular purpose connected to their IEP or 504. There's some students who are parents. They might need an exception, or students that are caring for siblings or maybe for ill parents. So I think we can work through and continue to refine that list. But those are the types of things that we have been talking about as potential exceptions. A number of people have raised concerns around the multilingual learners in our community and how do they get interpreting support, because a number of them will use their phones for that. There are ways that we can support students with that without phones, working through Chromebooks. There's also a translation feature in Reach My Teach. So it's possible that a teacher could use Reach My Teach to send out materials to students, which would then they could get translated in their own language. So these are technological things that we can work through and I think address a lot of them. Another thing that comes up is alternative supports for students that rely on their phones for some kind of classwork. So we've heard from a teacher who has students using their phones for photography class, or another class where they're using phones for advanced scientific calculators. And I think, again, those are things we can solve. We can buy cameras, we can use Chromebooks for calculator functions. We can look at I think what we need is sort of a broad accounting of what the different uses are, and then we work our way through it, and we work with teachers to make sure that they have what they need and students have what they need, that they can do their classes and their learning without actually using a phone. So there are still more events to come. As Chair Lentz shared earlier, May 27th from 6 to 7 here at Casco Bay High School. May 28th is a session at King starting at 5:30 with a particular emphasis on our multilingual families. There will be interpreters from all of our sort of biggest language groups. And then we will be putting out a community survey very soon, but we've been sort of waiting and gathering a lot of information and hearing what some of the questions are that are coming up so that we can make sure that the survey is getting the added information that we may want, having now gone through a number of engagement sessions and then public comment tonight. And then the vote is currently scheduled to be on June 10th. So I will pause there, and I can flip over and show people the policy itself. But do you want to ask questions first?
Yeah. So I know the student representatives both have some words that they want to share, but let's start with any questions first, and then we can move on to their statements. Go ahead, Board Member Lena.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Dr. Warren. One question I have is about the visit to Morse High School tomorrow morning. How will that experience be shared with the community and with the board?
That's a great question. How would you like it to be shared? I think we'll be documenting the notes from the visit, and we can share those out, certainly with the board. I'm not sure what the best way is to share them with the community, but yeah. Student Representative Fitzgerald.
Yeah, I was going to say that I was planning on writing something about it anyway and presenting it to my school or handing it out to them anyway. So I could do something for you guys too, maybe, or just send you the same thing, just because I do think that it's very important that their opinion, is it just the teachers, the administration, or is it also students at Morse?
Students as well.
Oh, awesome.
Yep.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm excited for all that.
Yep. So glad that you figured out how to go as well. Great.
Yeah.
Okay, so there'll be notes that will be shared. Beautiful. What other questions do folks have? Yes, go ahead.
The survey that is upcoming, would that be available for students or just community members?
Students, staff, and families. Yep. Yeah. We want to continue to get the broad perspective.
And just on the survey, do we know how long it will be able to be open?
The dates have sort of flexed a little bit now as we got deeper into this. So I don't have the exact dates. The goal was to try to get the survey results back to you all before the actual vote.
Great. And just, I know this is a tremendously busy time of year for folks. So as long as we can keep it open for as long as possible, I think that would be great. Board Member Lena?
Thanks. This is about the actual language in the policy, and it's just about something I'd communicated with you before about a typo. I figured out what the issue is. There's just repeated text on page 2, the section that says students' cellular telephones and other electronic devices may be subject to search, etc. So it's printed twice in 2 different areas, so it just needs to be deleted in that first part. So under it's section 5B. Halfway through, it says C period student cellular telephones. That's actually written in section 6. Do you see that?
Hang on, I'm going to go ahead and share this document. Okay.
So in section 5B, halfway through, there's a point C.
Yeah.
So that is actually included if you go down to section 6. It's the same text.
Yeah.
Repeated. So it just needs to be deleted from.
Okay. I actually went looking for this today to correct it, and I didn't see it. So we can clean that up. I don't think that doesn't even require an amendment or anything. We can just fix it.
Yeah. Thank you. Board Member Bryden, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. So I have a question about the survey. I just wanted to, ask or confirm whether there will be free-form text fields, and if so, what will all of those responses be gathered and made available to us, so we can look at the really in the weeds feedback?
Yeah.
Is that okay? Super. And then I'm curious are you also looking for more specific questions around the mechanics of implementation, or is that something that you'd rather have at a different time?
I'm happy to answer, what we're currently thinking and what we're learning.
Super. And also, I apologize if I ask a question that has been covered in committee. I really apologize. I try to stay up on recordings, but can't always do it.
What moves through both?
I'm curious about if it has already been discussed, what would happen if a student brings a device that, for example, doesn't fit in a pouch, like a tablet or a personal laptop or something like that, whether there needs to be something in the policy specifically about that.
Yep, great question. So I don't think so, because the storage mechanism is really more of a procedure. So I would suggest that the board not go into storage mechanisms in the policy.
Yeah.
But that said, you actually did bring up something I didn't mention that has come up in some of this, especially with student conversations, that I think we are going to need to kind of circle back on and figure out. That is the question around personal laptops. It took me back to our technology team to talk about how often is this happening, how many students are using their personal laptop and not a school issued one. It poses security questions in terms of outside devices being connected to our network. So it's a sort of a separate but related question. And I do think that that's something that we should continue to talk about, and that the board will need to consider, is whether or not you want to address laptops as part of this policy. It may be that we should handle it separately, but we should clarify whether this does or does not apply to laptops. But on the storage question, I think we can figure that out, right? We can, even if we adopt pouches, we can have a secondary, setup for things that are bigger or whatever. Yeah.
Okay. And also we recommend you leave your devices at home lands very differently for a laptop versus a phone or a smartwatch.
Yep.
Okay. My next question, I have a small handful of questions that arose as I was jotting down notes while people were giving public comment. I think I heard somebody say that they thought perhaps external emails for parents so if a student wanted to email their parent about, oh, soccer's canceled, that those email addresses are blocked, and I wanted to confirm whether that's true. And if it is true, whether there's a mechanism to like designate 1 or 2 email addresses per student that's acceptable.
It's true that students cannot email external email addresses. Students, is that right? And we have not dug in yet to figure out what the alternative mechanisms would be.
Yeah.
I think we haven't really fully brought our full IT sort of capacity to the conversation yet to figure out some of these alternatives. I do think that our friends at Reach My Teach are going to be helpful in figuring out some of these pieces. So I'm not sure that emailing out will necessarily be the right way. I mean, things like changes in schedules to athletics teams that, we may be able to set up Reach My Teach groups for individual teams so that families can get communications that way. So I think we're just going to have to get creative about the different mechanisms. And I think we can explore your question, like, is there a way to designate a couple of addresses that they are allowed to send a message to? But
yeah. And so part of that is I also have a line item in my notes about Reach My Teach limitations. I will say as a person who frequently needs to have conversations with multiple grownups at the same time, it can use some improvement. So I wouldn't want us to rely on that platform to solve some complicated, for example, if a student needs to get in touch with 2 parents, things like that.
Can I just say one thing on that? And I'm glad you raised that again, because I know it came up when we were having the special ed conversation. So I want to make sure we do go back and talk to Reach My Teach about that. They've been amazing in my experience about listening to what our needs are and adapting and building new parts of their platform to help address our needs. So
that's great.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah. And as long as those conversations, for sure. And then my last question has to do with something I'm hoping that you could maybe ask the folks at Morse High School about, because I heard, and I'm not sure that this is necessarily something that would be the same across districts and schools, but I think it would be worthwhile asking the question of Morse and potentially even other schools. Somebody raised the specter of increased chronic absenteeism, if particularly at the high school level, if students are going to look at their choices and say, well, I would rather just not go to school at all. So I'd be curious to hear what their experience has been.
Great. Yep, we'll ask.
Thanks, Chair.
Beautiful. I'm going to come over to Student Representative Fitch. You don't have one now? Okay. All right. Yes, Student Representative Lee.
Yes, I have a question surrounding the concerns around multilingual learners. This is just what I have heard is that technology, which allows these students to, for example, specifically like take a picture of a block of text and have it translated. What I've heard is that is not really available on Chromebooks and is a very important feature for many multilingual learners. So I'm just wondering if you have contrary information to that or a perspective to offer.
I don't. It's something that we can certainly solve for, though. If the Chromebook won't do it, then we can look at putting iPads in rooms that would, enable students to take pictures. It's an important point. I think whatever technology we have to make sure that it does serve the needs of our multilingual learners. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, student.
Yeah, I just want to build off of that. Somebody had mentioned, or it was mentioned that we would figure out kind of the multilingual issue, they could just use computers for translating and all that stuff, which I get in the classroom, but during lunch and during clubs or in school, because our clubs happen during the middle of the day and because of our schedule, it's just beyond impractical to ask somebody to pull out their computer during lunch or just to communicate with their friend. So I do think that if there was to be exceptions made, then multilingual students would need to be part of that. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. We're going to go Board Member Yusra Ali and then Ali.
I had actually a point about how restrictive the MacBooks are, the school Chromebooks, the Chromebooks are. And I would be interested to find out if we can kind of broaden what is considered appropriate websites, like the student had coding class. So I would like students to kind of have, not their Chromebooks be something that's just basically a block, 'cause I never liked them as well, but more functional. Another thing that I'm thinking about, and I really appreciate the points that you bring up, but I would steer away from thinking of multilingual students as unable to communicate, unable to solve their issues. They navigate the world without their phones. So I would not myself sit here and say, well, they should have a special exception because they can do it. I wouldn't say that. We will look at options of how do we help students and how do we incorporate them. I had friends who did not speak English. That does not mean that they have to bring out their computers. That can be a moment for someone to teach someone English. So let's not think of students as unable to advocate for themselves or navigate the world without phones. That's what I would say.
Thank you.
Can I just wanted to address the prior point you made because it was important and I took note of that too. I was taking lots of notes during public comment so I can follow up. But that thing about the sites being blocked, that's not Chromebooks. That is the software that sort of filters and makes sure that students aren't getting to things that are dangerous. The current program is called Securely. We're moving over to a Google-based program. And I think that's something we can talk with our IT team about is how those are set and how we kind of review and navigate. I mean, those programs are designed to automatically catch stuff because there are just so many different sites out there. But I think we can talk to our IT team and maybe talk to, the folks that made the software and try to figure out if there are ways that we can, broaden the definition a little bit because you can actually deem something safe, right? If it's identified that it's actually needed for an educational purpose, it could be kind of, allowed in.
Thank you. Board Member Ali.
Yes. First off, I want to just thank you for everything that you've done in the background. It's a lot of work that we don't do, and we appreciate it. So just a few points. Number one, information travels the fastest from person to person, right? It does. And even information like that may be available online or whatever. Usually when I get phone calls, I'm like, oh, I get it. Like, I got it, So that's like it, or face to face, whatever. So I think that's like one of the biggest things that we were starting to forget. Like back in the days when we went to school, everything was word of mouth. If this got canceled, that got canceled after school, if whatever it was, and when you got the information, you got the information. And people know how vital it is to get and pass the information when there are no phones. So that just spreads like wildfire. So I just, while thinking about all these difficult changes that we are like coming into, I think we also need to like realize that like before 10, 15 years ago, like way before that, all that, like, none of it existed. And I think we can make our way back and not make it as difficult as that is just on the information side. But I just want to say though on the piece of the language barrier, I do want to say that I was at an event, and I don't know if I said this last time, at a Rwandan event about the genocide, and tough event. 1 million people, 100 days, 1 million people died. And I really wanted to get the information, and it did help. Using my phone to help. So I just want to say that the tool in using the device for educational purposes for that reason, I would understand. But obviously the reason why we're trying to ban phones is because of the lack of social interactions, the distractions, the advertisements, social media, etc., and the list goes on. But for educational purposes, that may be something to consider, as well as mental health, emotional health, and other major things that may occur, like family health problems that they have at home they need to be in contact with, etc. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Opperman, and then we'll come back down here.
Thank you. I just want to share a comment that Dr. Valenzuela made before the meeting. It was in reference, she shared it with me, reference to the 5th to 6th grade meeting with multilingual. And I think Dr. Ahmed can correct me, but apparently was asked about cell phones, and he said no, they would not be able to have access to cell phones. And they cheered. The parents cheered about it. So I just, I do know that, in wanting to learn English more quickly, in just an interactive way. So just a comment.
Thank you, Board Member Lena, and then we're going to move to students for their statements.
Sure. Thank you. One point that was brought up during public comment and something that I've been thinking a lot about as someone who's worked in classrooms is the school issued devices are often used for non-academic purposes. And it's very challenging as a teacher to be monitoring that as well. And so I think it would be really important if we're going to be implementing a policy like this, that we're also looking into the procedures and how the school issued devices are being monitored, and whether or not, a third grade teacher that wants the kids on Google Classroom to read an article that they shared don't have access to go onto coolmathgames.com while they're supposed to be reading an article on their Chromebook. That kind of thing happens all the time at all levels. And if the idea is to increase attention in the classroom, and we're giving students devices to use in the classroom, that they are using them for the intended purpose.
Yeah, I made note of that too. That caught my attention.
Thank you.
Thank you. Student Representative Fitzgerald, would you like to share your comments?
A little bit long, but okay, so this is I would just like to simply represent my own opinions and my school's thoughts and student body's opinions. Being on the board, I've learned exactly how hard this job is. There's a lot of moving parts and a lot of people, a lot of opinions, and a lot of ideas. That's one of the main reasons that we have 5 student representatives. Let me start by saying I fully understand the concerns about phones, both in and out of the classrooms. Phones disrupt learning, and it's not the teacher's job to constantly police them, and students should be capable of putting their phones away to focus on schoolwork. However, to many, the proposed policy's intent doesn't seem to match its perceived execution thus far. Technology evolves rapidly, and with it, our society changes and adapts. Young people are constantly at the forefront of that change. Schools already reflect this change by using QR codes, accepting Apple Pay, and basically all work being online, even having all standardized testing online now, including AP tests. This isn't about entitlement, it's about acknowledging that students must be part of every conversation shaping policies that affect them. The board has consulted students this past year at the middle schools, I'm pretty sure. However, my school haven't been or felt included. The students at my school haven't been or felt included up until this past month, which suggests either inefficient outreach or too few discussions over this very in-depth and interesting topic. From my talks with teachers, parents, peers, one thing is clear. No one wants this to escalate into a bigger conflict than it needs to be. Complex and honest dialogue between students and teachers and schools could resolve much of this. I agree that the pushback shows how deeply ingrained this tech is. One of the public commenters had said that, and I agree, but it's honestly not going to go away unless the parents make the choice to educate and discipline their children. The choice shouldn't fall on the school. But assuming that students, especially high school students, are unwilling to compromise without being given the adequate chance, many feels rather reactive than proactive. This does include if the phone policy gets passed, because a lot of people don't think it's a horrible idea to not have phones during class or to have a stricter policy around them. But instead of polarizing the issue, we should deliberate and truly try to solve it. There's no sense on building on shaky foundations. And if teachers already have apprehensions around this policy due to inconsistent enforcement, both from staff and students, how can we call it a pro-teacher policy? I know many feel a clear enforcement plan, one that everyone understands and agrees with, would lessen these concerns. I don't know how policy is made, but people aren't going to stop asking, basically. I'm pretty sure agreement is one of the cornerstones of progress, and I personally feel that in our current climate, we can't afford to waste time and money and effort on policies that divide us. One of the other public commenters had said that. Do you remember? She had like curly. Yeah. When I read letters of support for the ban, I don't want to dismiss their valid points, but many cite phones as distractions and objects that increase our students' anxiety. And this is proven, but it begs the question, why weren't proactive measures taken earlier when phones became an issue? One concern raised was now that they're integrated in daily life, banning them at school could just make them seem like a toy rather than a tool. This is all to say, how do we ensure that home usage doesn't spike, still harming mental health and academics? If you went back 20 years ago, or 15, 10, whatever, with the knowledge that you had about phones, how many of you wouldn't have given your kid a phone until they were 18? If the students didn't have phones, would they still be problematic? And a child arguing over not giving up a phone is, I don't believe, maybe it's a student's issue, but at the same time, it's like, it's not every child, and I've heard it's very select few children that do these things. So perhaps individual workshops could be better. I don't know. I've thought that maybe I'm looking too much into this topic, but this is just everything that has been brought up at my school. And if the real issue is that kids are using their phones during class rather than paying attention to the teacher, then there are also solutions proposed by students, such as taking attendance with the phones, real punishments for those who disobey the policy already in place, or even a middle and elementary school ban to mitigate high school use. Education at home around policies around phones could also be a major factor in school phone use. I know no one wants to be the bad guy, and I'm sad that many teachers describe this process as them having to play the bad guy or something like that. But no one has to be, because people are smart and capable. We just need to make the effort. The policy might not happen next year if we take the adequate steps, but I believe that we would all find it more than worth it. As a board, we can agree that teachers are vital, but students are equally integral to a school. Education isn't just about memorizing equations, it's about preparing us for life, building healthy habits, setting boundaries, and learning limits. If data shows that bans improve test scores or reduce cyberbullying, that reveals a deeper issue we could address through engagement and education, not just what seems to be punitive measures. I would like to take a step back and look at longevity. Thank you.
Thank you. And Student Representative Lee?
Oh yeah, I should just get right on into it?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do it.
Yeah.
First off, I would like to thank Representative Fitzgerald for her very eloquent statements. And I would like to mention a couple other points that I see as imperative to consider when discussing this policy. Because as I see it, once again, sort of echoing her statements, my primary job on this board is to represent the views and priorities of Deering students. And so bearing that in mind, I think it's important for the board to know that I have not spoken to a single Deering student or PPS student, for that matter, who does not have significant issues with the proposed cell phone policy. Dr. Warren alluded to this discontent in her presentation, and I just want to advise everyone to really keep it in mind. A primary concern I've heard, which I just want to share, is the way in which this policy could sort of achieve the opposite of its desired effect. While this policy seeks to reduce tensions around students' phones and personal devices, I worry it could actually increase those tensions. There are so many students who are already come into conflict with their teachers over phone use, maybe have general behavior issues, absences, etc. And so if you take such a student and you tell them that now we'll be confiscating their phone, I just think that student is not going to respond well, and that maybe such a student's refusal to comply with this policy may be stronger than this board seems to be anticipating. But I don't mean to be too harsh. But as was brought up in public comment, there could be great potential for a resulting increase in absenteeism. And another part of this policy, which I have concerns about is its provisions surrounding personal laptops and even earbuds in addition to cell phones. In terms of the previously discussed personal laptops, this policy as currently written does not apply to them. Does apply to them. And I am of course aware that this policy provides a process by which such devices can gain approval to be permitted for use. However, creating this sort of rigmarole for the many students who already regularly use personal laptops is a possible example of how this policy could create unnecessary bad feelings, which could be avoided by a full exception for such devices. And in terms of earbuds, to me, that just was a little bit eyebrow raising. In my personal experience, at least at Deering, none of my classrooms are equipped with headphones besides students' personal ones. And so this new policy would require a significant investment in re-equipping PPS classrooms with headphones, given that audio and videos are an everyday part of the modern classroom. And so in my view, this investment could be seen as unnecessary because taking away students' earbuds in the first place could be seen as unnecessary and is seen as unnecessary by many people I talk to. And I'd just like to, well, I don't know if I actually need to talk about this, but I wanted to confirm that the amount of stuff that is blocked on the Chromebooks these days really is so much. And I feel like I'm impeded very often in my ability to do some assignments and research for extracurriculars such as debate, especially just by things being blocked for seemingly no reason. But I think you said we're switching to a different system for that. So thank you. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Student Representative. Any last thoughts from board members? Yeah, Board Member Ali?
Yeah, so are we still going to continue working on this, or is this where the workshop we make the edit?
Yeah, so this is our workshop that we would do this on or like have conversation on. What would happen now is if any board member wanted to work on an amendment or work with each other on an amendment, you would do that and you would send it out to the board in advance of the next meeting. And then we would vote on amendments to the policy. So I would just encourage you to talk to one another, obviously not in groups because we public meeting laws. But yes, Board Member Bryden.
Thank you, Chair. I was just looking for clarification on the number of people within the board that we can discuss. Two. Okay. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for that answer.
Yes. And could I just ask a question about earbuds to either students or anyone that knows about this? Do we know why, because I know we adopted that language from like a model policy, but I'm just not sure, they don't seem to fall into either the distraction column or the communication column that we've talked about. So I'm just curious why they were, everybody's
You can say it.
I wasn't even done on the first time. You wanted to do a follow-up because of the headphones, literally. So yeah, about the headphones, I don't know if that's like the best idea to remove them because like what if you're like on your, I think headphones are, in the middle, but watches though, Apple Watches, it's in the middle as well because I use one. I use it like for everything, prayer times, for like heart tracker, for emergencies, but I mean that's the reason why we're stopping it. But anyways, I use it for everything. So and a lot of major things that I need for myself. So
on the bud thing, I have buds, and you can have a something going and be able to communicate, even though you may not have the object in your hand. So if you have it off and away kind of situation, it could be in you could have your pod, your whatever, your phone in a case and still communicate, at least at some aspect. So,
Board Member Lena.
Yeah, I was just going to say about the phones, the earbuds. I think part of it probably is just an engagement piece. It's easy to be checked out if you have something, if you're listening to something, just the peer-to-peer connection. Like if you approach someone and they have earbuds in, you don't know if they're listening to you or they're listening to the earbuds. I think that's maybe part of it. But I did also just want to say about all of the things that probably the high schools have gotten used to doing in the last 10 years. Not purchasing more headphones, not purchasing cameras, that's because we've become so reliant on the phones. And we have an example in Portland Public Schools where personal phones are not being used in the elementary schools at all. There are ways that students can communicate to home. There are ways that parents can communicate to their children. Yes, elementary school students don't have after-school athletics or clubs to the same degree, but I just want to put this out there that there are ways to have these things communicated and address all of the issues. And we've just kind of gotten into a habit because we can. And if this policy passes, the pressure will be on to solve those problems. Right now, we don't have to solve those problems because we have alternative ways.
Board Member Upperman, go ahead.
A couple things on that. These phones are not restricted after school. I mean, that's the whole point. So if you have an activity, at the end of the day, you can check your phone, or actually you could check your email during the day. That isn't part of, if you're on a, whatever school gives you. And then if you're staying late or being wherever you are, if you're not in the building during bell to bell, that's the piece of this, I think, that limits it, so that if a student is leaving at lunchtime, if the way can manage, or they're going off somewhere, those are situations that I see as reasonable. But it's that's the piece in the evening after school. You can be careful. Although it really bothers me to see that people feel, if you're leaving school and going downtown and walking around downtown and you're afraid, then that's something we have to talk to the police department about, really. I mean, not just the situation that happened in front of Deering, but just, if you're going to go down and get a cup of coffee out of Portland High. So it's a side comment.
Yes. Yes, this is going to be the last comment because we have to get moving. We have a lot of executive sessions, so we.
That.
Well, that's okay. We want to hear what you have to say.
Speak.
No, it's not that important.
Yes, it is.
I will encourage you both, though, to email your comments to the board so that we have a record of them. That would be really wonderful. And if you have other thoughts to share in the meantime, please share those as well.
Thank you so much.
Beautiful.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, so I'm going to now move us into executive session. There's several that I need to read out here. We have 4 back-to-backs tonight. I'm going to read them all, and then we'll take a first and a second. So we have the consideration and action to enter into executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA 405-60 to discuss Portland adult education negotiations. The consideration and action to enter into executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA 405-6D to discuss I'm quite tired this evening. To discuss the PEA negotiations, consideration and action to enter into executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA 405-6D to discuss student enrichment coordinator negotiations, and finally, consideration and action to enter into executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA 405-6D to discuss a personnel matter. Is there a motion? Thank you, Board Member Noor. Is there a second? Board Member Opperman, all those in favor? Well done, unanimous. So we'll go into executive session and then come back out to adjourn. All right, and we're back. So I'd be looking for a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Board Member Noor. Is there a second? Board Member Bryden, all those in favor? We are adjourned at 11:12 p.m.
Thank you.
Thank you and have a good night, everyone.